parallel with AI, right? And NVIDIA is always going to be kind of the golden child of AI, but now you have all of these smaller companies that have come into play that, you know, perhaps investors haven't even heard of just yet, right? And I think gold has always been that classic inflation hedge, and for investors that have experience who've been in the market for multiples of decades, that probably their go-to inflation hedging, but perhaps that next generation trader is going to start looking at crypto, right? And I think with crypto, not only do you have inflation play, but you also have this growth with the commercialization of it, the growth in ETFs, you know, all these different crypto companies that are coming out, like Circle, you know, Bitcoin emerging companies. There's just been this explosion in that sector and really buy-in into that theme from particularly younger investors.
So as ETF product matures as an asset class there, how have you seen the investor mix change, retail versus institutional? How's that played out from your perspective?
You know, it's really been amazing. When I started my career in ETFs, mutual funds were still the winners, right? And you have these conversations at whatever company you worked for that, like, you know, mutual funds are the thing, and you really have to compete with them. And now it's kind of like, it's just switched completely. It's flipped. I think investors are comfortable with the idea that they can trade intraday and get, you know, a value for what they trade throughout the day, and not just an end of day NAV strike. You know, the fees are arguably still lower on most ETFs versus mutual funds. I think the kind of the younger generation of retail traders and retail investors, they probably don't even know what, you know, what the difference is between mutual fund and ETF, but they probably only hold an ETF. So I just think that there's just this big shift towards ETFs, and you kind of see that in the conversions that a lot of the larger companies are doing. That being said, you know, no, on mutual funds, obviously, I just think that it's a different type of flexible product that is just really taken over in terms of interest.
Well, you are, of course, loyal to the ETF world, Sylvia. Sylvia Jablonski joining us. Thank you so much, Sylvia, CEO and CIO of Defiance ETFs. Paul? All
right, it is United Nations months here a week here in New York
Feels
City.
Like a month.
It feels like a month, so we're all ready for gearing up for it, because it means just a lot of traffic, a lot of changes in road closures and so on and so forth as the UN gets together. Miles Miller, Bloomberg News, a senior reporter. He's all over this. Miles, thanks for joining us here in our studio. What's the expectations for this year's UN Summit?
Yeah, you should expect that, you know, and a number of nations are coming at a time when there are conflicts around the world. And because of that, there is extra security this year. We went to the United Nations on Thursday of last week, and you saw the preparations they were putting into place. Of course, this United Nations General Assembly comes on the backdrop of the assassination of Charlie Kirk. And so that means extra security, and they're studying that shooting to make sure that if something were to happen in Manhattan, they know how to get these 150 leaders and their spouses to where they need to get to.
One thing that you point out in your reporting is that the security surrounds the United Nations complex right alongside the East River on 42nd Street. And this building is actually really difficult to protect. It's not a fortress. It's, you know, glass, and it's kind of designed to be open, which is at odds with the security required for the event.
Right. When built in the 1950s with the era of transparency, Long Island City wasn't as vibrant as it is today. You know, a big security target, obviously. You know, we went to the top of the Dag Hammarskjöld library. The top two floors used to be, I mean, when you go in, it's gorgeous. It's like straight out of the 60s, right? Mid-century modern furniture and all that kind of stuff. But the floor is completely barren because of the security threat that place occupies. You know, it's right by the FDR Drive. You know, if somebody wanted to do something untoward from across on, you know, a nearby Sutton Place or you know, in that area, it'd be very easy. And so, yes, they have the vaporwave dogs that are sniffing for bombs. They've got the sharpshooters who are on top of the roof. They're marrying UN security with NYPD and Secret Service. And actually what was really interesting is to learn that the security guards from the United Nations go down to Maryland, train with the Secret Service to figure out how you get people out of a sticky situation if one were to happen.
President Trump will be attending the United Nations. What's on his agenda?
Yeah, I think, you know, one thing we know is he'll be meeting with the heads of some Arab nations while he's here. These are meetings that they call on the sidelines of the summit, so he won't be meeting with them at the UN, but at hotels and that kind of thing. A number of meetings. It comes at a time when the U.S. has gone in this sort of isolationist path, you know, go it alone sort of path. And it also comes at a time, you know, we were talking about it earlier, where the United States is not paying its debts to the United Nations. And so,
How much do we owe the UN?
I put it here because I didn't want to make a mistake on that. $3 billion, including 826 million tied to this year's regular budget. The rest is in arrears from past years and unpaid peacekeeping bills. But you saw it when Trump came into office, right? What we saw specifically was a pullback from U.S. aid, a pullback in a lot of funding UNESCO and Human Rights Council and NATO as well. And so these unpaid bills will carry consequences under the UN's charter. Countries that fall 2 years behind their bills lose their vote in the General Assembly. We'll see what happens with that.
What about the Security Council? Because the U.S. is one of the permanent members of the Security Council.
Right. So you sort of have to figure out what will happen here. Of course, Trump is going to meet with the head of the UN. He's going to try to make the case that the U.S. is not going to go it alone, but will be working in partnership. That remains to be seen. The Secretary General will be making the case that the U.S. should be paying its bills. But this really goes to the diplomatic approach, right? The U.S. did not have someone assigned to the United Nations. That just got through, of course, last week.
Right, and President Trump is set to deliver his speech to the United Nations on Tuesday morning. Miles Miller, thank you so much. We appreciate that. Miles Miller, Bloomberg News senior reporter, giving us a preview of the United Nations taking place in Midtown Manhattan. A lot more coming up. This is Bloomberg Report.
Hello, my name is DrPaulCottrell, and we are live streaming on YouTube, on my website, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and simulcasting on X Spaces. Thank you for joining. We're also going to re-release this recording on all my different channels. We're recording this on September 22nd. I also did a video last night with John Hogue, so please watch that video on the different channels. I have 4 channels on YouTube. I have Brighteon, Bitchute, and Rumble. Please subscribe to all those channels. The links are in the description of this video and all my videos. And if you like the free content that I provide, please help support the work by getting the great products that I have on my website. I have ebooks, supplements, and course material on immunology and pulmonology. You can also support the work that I do by donating. You can donate on my website through Stripe, PayPal, or Buy Me a Coffee. You can also be a paid member to my Substack channel and to Patreon. So take a look at those different channels. You can follow me also on X and on GETTR. Great. There are many modalities to follow my work. Please help support by donating, subscribing, and purchasing the great products that I offer. If you pay attention to the protocol that I mentioned throughout this video, you will improve your immune system, slow down the aging process, and you'll be able to weather the storm during the fall and winter. Better start being prepared for this fall and this winter because it will be problematic. 100% sure on that. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. All right. We're going to go to Jimmy Kimmel discussion on the Hill.
Good morning, rise and shine, or rising and shine, I guess.
That's good. Let's change the name.
I never said that, I don't think, not once in 5 years.
Bringing out the best in you. Shining right now.
Yes, you are. Well, I'm glad to see you in such a positive mood. I know you had a harrowing journey back to our fair city.
It was a disaster. I'm just getting acclimated to DC, and you missed one Amtrak. The Acela Express cost $1 million.
I drove here
So
for.
I just drove in the middle of the night.
It's crazy.
It was ridiculous. But thank you to the agency. Allowed me to get a car the same day in the middle of Manhattan.
Glad you made it.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here, and I'm delirious. Coming up on Wednesday, California Governor Gavin Newsom is taking action against mass ICE agents, but will the new bill be enforceable?
And plus, Governor Josh Shapiro is taking a jab at former President Kamala Harris.
And I'll be
Vice President, excuse me. not
Yeah.
President.
Yeah, and I'll be discussing how the right seems to be betraying their free speech principles when it comes to Jimmy Kimmel. But first, Robbie, what is on your radar today?
I have a similar subject that I'm addressing. Now, according to the latest news, as you just announced, Lindsay, Jimmy Kimmel is negotiating a return to late night after being yanked off the airwaves following his deplorable comments implying that Tyler Robinson, the alleged murderer of Charlie Kirk, was actually part of the MAGA gang. Of course, everything we've learned about Robinson suggests he was not himself part of MAGA, rather he allegedly killed Kirk because Kirk was MAGA. Kimmel should not have implied otherwise. He's not alone, of course. Incorrect notions about the suspect's political tribe have remained enduringly popular in liberal media circles. One of the top mainstream liberal Substack writers, Heather Cox Richardson, wrote last week that the motive of the alleged shooter remains unclear. This is simply not true. Interviews with Robinson's friends, family members, as well as text messages between Robinson and his roommate, his transgender romantic partner, paint a clear portrait of a man who found Kirk's conservative views harmful. Now, while Kimmel is a comedian rather than a newscaster, given how paranoid the mainstream media is about the spread of so-called misinformation, the criticism of Kimmel on this subject was well-deserved. And private businesses, private media companies, well, they're allowed to make decisions about their own programming and decide they don't want to employ, broadcast, or platform someone they disagree with, or someone who's losing money because the audience doesn't like it. Free speech means freedom from government coercion. It does not mean freedom to say whatever you want on somebody else's dime. And so the decision to suspend Kimmel was made by ABC after Nexstar Media and Sinclair Broadcast Group decided not to air him on their local stations. In the interest of full disclosure, Nexstar is the parent company of The Hill, the program you're watching. Here's the bigger issue. Again, it's fine to take Kimmel off the air. It's just not okay for the government to take Kimmel off the air. Unfortunately, the Federal Communications Commission, very unwisely, in my view, decided to insert itself in this matter. Brendan Carr is chair of the FCC. Not only did he criticize what Kimmel had to say, he also implicitly pressured the broadcasters. Take a look what he said during an interview with conservative influencer Benny Johnson.
But frankly, when you see stuff like this, I mean, look, we can do this the easy way or the hard way. These companies can find ways to change conduct and take action, frankly, on Kimmel, or, you know, there's going to be additional work for the FCC. Again, there's actions that we can take on licensed broadcasters. And frankly, I think that it's really sort of past time that a lot of these licensed broadcasters themselves push back.
We can do this the easy way or the hard way. It's not an idle threat. The FCC licenses broadcast channels and can fine them or can take them off the air. The FCC can make life very difficult for companies that defy it. So I'll say it once again. Private companies have the right to determine their programming as they see fit. And a washed-up comedian telling lame jokes about a subject he is clearly misinformed on, with a declining number of viewers as part of a media format that is antiquated and perpetually losing money, not a recipe for riveting television, in my humble opinion. Letting Kimmel and the rest of the late-night crowd go extinct is perfectly fine. It's a business decision. But it is not the FCC's decision. As Glenn Greenwald put it, I couldn't have said it better myself, this shouldn't be a complicated or difficult dichotomy to understand. Jimmy Kimmel is repulsive, but the state has no role in threatening companies to fire on-air voices it dislikes or who the state believes is spreading disinformation, which is exactly what happened here. Moreover, the Trump administration's actions are functionally equivalent to the Biden administration's attacks on private social media companies, which caused numerous free speech infringements during the COVID-19 pandemic. Recall that President Biden, who accused Facebook of killing people when it declined to censor anti-vaccine content, well, his comm staffers were likely motivating factors behind a whole host of regrettable moderation decisions made by Facebook at the behest of the White House, the CDC, and other government agencies. When federal employees use the threat of regulation, fines, and other forms of punishment to induce private companies into self-censorship, so does jawboning. That's the term. Now, whether this practice violates the First Amendment, which constrains the government's ability to restrict speech, that's not entirely a settled matter. In Murphy v. Missouri, the Supreme Court declined to rule that the Biden administration had violated the First Amendment rights of social media users. The case is also known as Missouri v. Biden. The majority decision, however, had to do with standing and did not actually address the arguments of the plaintiffs. Many free speech scholars rightly believe that the First Amendment rights of private media companies and their users will not be protected until and unless the court makes clear that this sort of behavior from federal bureaucrats, jawboning, is wrong. Ironically, FCC Chair Carr has strongly denounced jawboning in the past and in general been a strong supporter of the First Amendment rights. He frequently called out the Biden administration for engaging in this very practice, writing in August of 2022, "This is very concerning. The government does not evade the First Amendment's restraints on censoring political speech by jawboning a company into suppressing it. Rather, that conduct runs headlong into those constitutional restrictions, as Supreme Court law makes clear." There's simply no way to square the circle. There's simply no way to square the circle. It's wrong for the Biden administration to pressure social media companies to serve the public interest as defined by Biden and censor fraught content. Then it's wrong for the Trump administration to pressure broadcasters to enforce a Trump-defined public interest. Don't just take my word for it. Senator Rand Paul and Senator Ted Cruz, they both agree with me. Cruz said the FCC's actions here were dangerous as hell. It's a direct quote from him. That all conservatives should oppose the FCC trying to pressure companies to make editorial decisions of this kind. And Paul said the following.
You can be fired for not being popular also. I mean, this is television, for goodness sakes. You have to sell sponsorships, you have to sell commercials. And if you're losing money, you can be fired. But the government's got no business in it. And the FCC was wrong to weigh in. And I'll fight any attempt by the government to get involved with speech. I will fight.
Good for them. Cruz and Paul are exactly right on this. I totally agree with them.
I'm glad I'm doing my lens on this because I have a lot to say, but I will respond to some of what you said. I think what the Trump administration is doing, it's like they're trying to just get rid of anybody that doesn't conform to the political speech that aligns with them. And it was even interesting in a step further that President Trump just last week started threatening to possibly revoke the licenses of broadcasters that say too many bad things. And I'm paraphrasing, but you know what he said, like, if you guys have seen him speaking about this, he was like, there's so much negativity about me. We need to revoke these licenses. And I think he's misunderstanding and misusing and often even considering abusing the government in ways, like you said, if private companies don't agree with it, that's fine. But the president should not be inserting himself on whether he's covered unfairly or not. Also, part of that coverage, which conservatives have complained about, bred a slew of conservative outlets that should be amazing for people that felt like there was lack of a voice to level the playing field. I mean, even Reason, where you work, Newsmax popped up in recent years. I mean, we're having multiple different outlets to provide.
Well, Democrats have tried to throttle all those. So that's the blowback here is conservatives say, well, but Democrats try to get Newsmax taken off the air. They try to get Fox taken off the air.
And also with the FCC, I think it's just totally wrong. So if you understand what the FCC is governing, they're looking at things like, are you running commercials to children? That's against the FCC rules. Is there indecency in the programming? That's against the FCC rules. So no matter what you think about Jimmy Kimmel,
you and I had to familiarize ourselves.
We read through all of it.
We're on.
Yes, we went to an actual. Yes, we went to an actual seminar about it. But
we were given bars of soap and told to scrub out our mouths.
And we're also under a news division now, so we have to try to be accurate or attribute what we're saying. But with Jimmy Kimmel, people don't understand that he's under the entertainment division at ABC. So it's important to understand the differences between that. And even though he reports a lot of the news through his purview, he's still under the entertainment division. So that's an important distinction.
He should be accountable to his viewers, accountable to the market, he's accountable to his bosses, to the network. The SEC needed not say anything about this matter. I wish they hadn't. But we'll discuss it more when it's time for your lens. We will. Next up, the president is speaking over the weekend. He did speak over the weekend, rather, at an emotional memorial service for.
The FCC should not get involved, but people like Jimmy Kimmel, they have the right to speak, all right? But they don't have the right for reach. Freedom of speech, not freedom of reach, all right? If they if their ratings are tanking, if people don't want to listen to them, if the corporation is losing money, there's nothing wrong with the corporation canceling their contract or canceling their show or whatever as a business decision. But in this case, the FCC should not be getting involved. I think this is the totalitarian tiptoe, but no, there was no reason for the FCC to get involved. All right, let's listen to CNN here about this economy will be the key. So I think they're doing some polling. But before we do that, please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and be prepared for the fall and the winter, all right? But not just that, the supplements and the different products that I have to offer are going to help slow down the aging process and boost up your immune system. So one great product that is very important to take every day, but especially in the fall and the winter, are structural nanosilver soap, or structural nanosilver toothpaste and the soaps. But the structural nanosilver toothpaste and the soaps, okay? Now, with the structural nanosilver toothpaste, they'll whiten your teeth, freshen your breath, bring down inflammation at the gum line, and increase the gum line health. Has no fluoride, and it's really important to take this during the fall and the winter. This fall and winter is going to be problematic. You better be prepared. Get a few tubes of the toothpaste, use it, especially in the fall and the winter. And also get the structural nanosilver soaps. I have it in 4 different scents: charcoal tea tree, lemongrass, peppermint, and lavender. All right? Get a few bars for your household. Use it every day, but especially during the fall and the winter. This fall is going to be problematic, and you better start getting prepared. If something happens to you and you're not prepared, it's your own damn fault. Use discount 5, you get $5 off any order, but it's very important that you pay attention to what's going to be happening in the fall and the winter in the United States.
Yeah, det var it's take a flexi it's like it's
major issues, rather. Humanitarian and Mary depends on your perspective. I am not married. I said Mary as in happy. Anyway, but let's talk about this. What do you think?
Yeah, what are we seeing? You know, Donald Trump being underwater, Democrats, and all this guarantees us we're going to fly high in the midterm. Let me tell you, this guarantees you nothing, because at this particular point, the Democrats are the New Orleans Saints of political parties. What are we talking about? Trust the Dems or GOP more on the economy? Who leads on the economy? Republicans by 7. Immigration, Republicans by 13. How about crime, a big issue for Donald Trump and the Republicans? Look at that, lead by 22 points. So the bottom line is this: at this particular point, the ball may be on the ground, but the Democrats have not picked up the ball and running with it. If anything, at this particular point, it's the Republicans who are running with the ball on the top issues: the economy, immigration, and crime.
Give some context on this. Compare this when Republicans last took the House.
Yeah, let's compare it back to 2022. I think this kind of gives away the game right here. Hey, the GOP is more trusted than the Dems on the economy. It was 12 points in 2022. Slight decline in that lead, but still 7 points. How about immigration? It was Republicans by 3 back in 2022. Look at this. The Republican lead's actually gone up by 10 points. What are you doing, Democrats? My goodness gracious. And on crime, the Republicans were up by 13, and now they're up by 22. The lead again expanding by nearly double digits. So whatever Democrats are doing, it ain't working, Kate. It ain't working. Republicans have the lead on all 3 issues.
What's the reason that you are finding so far that's driving?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's all about the center of the electorate, right? You win with independents, you win overall. And what do we see right here among independents? Republicans still have a point lead on the economy. They got a 10-point lead on immigration. They got a 21-point lead on crime. The bottom line is, when you look at these,
you have to remember that this economy issue is the jobs. The job market is stalling, and the concern with tariffs. But once the concern with tariffs go away and jobs start to increase, that number for economy for the GOP is going to skyrocket in 2026. So the economy, in terms of midterm election performance for the Republican Party, Trump's at a good spot right now.
Democrats should call their offices because at this particular point, even if Republicans, or even if the public doesn't like what Donald Trump is doing, they ain't necessarily liking what Democrats are doing. And it ain't just a referendum on one party. You actually have to go out and beat that party at this particular point. Democrats are not able to beat Republicans. They stay.
And again, this isn't as Donald Trump came into office. These are numbers from this month.
These are numbers from September of 2025. We still find that the Republicans leading on all three of these issues. And of course, this economy will be the key. If Democrats are going to win, they're going to have to likely win on the economy. At this particular point among independents, you see that 1-point lead for Republicans. And overall, at least according to the Washington Post, they hold a 7-point lead on the economy overall as well.
Thank you, Harry.
Thank you.
Sarah.
All right, joining us now is former New Orleans mayor and former co-chair of the Harris Falls presidential campaign, Mitch Andrew. Thank you for being here. You just saw Harry dancing around those numbers, but there is nothing fun about them for Democrats. So it's an interesting conundrum. Trump is underwater in polling still. Republicans, though, largely pass what Trump demands, and still Americans are saying on three really big issues that they trust Republicans to take care of it over Democrats. So what is the issue here? What do Democrats need to do?
Well, first of all, welcome back. It's great to see you again. And Harry set me up. You heard that allusion to the New Orleans Saints. He didn't have to do that because he knew I was here. In any event, I've been working on something called the Working Class Project, and my team has traveled. We've had 61 meetings in 21 states, and we're talking to working class folks, people that are making less than $90,000 a year. These are the folks who actually win or lose elections for people. And the fact of the matter is they don't really trust anybody. They don't trust Washington. They don't think Washington's getting anything done. Nobody really is in a positive zone. Those numbers are who's better than who's. But if you look at the overall numbers, as Harry said, there's a jump ball. And the number one thing that working class people think about is the economy, because they feel like there's been a covenant that has been broken with them, with the government of America, whether they're Republicans or Democrats. And essentially the American dream, the promise is if you go to work and you work hard, you're going to get paid well. You're going to be able to put a roof over your head. You're going to be able to pay your rent. You're going to be able to take care of your kids. And by and large, because of the way you run everything with your family, your kids are going to have a better life than you. And most working class people think that that is out of reach, and they're really upset about it. So they're not happy with President Trump or the Republicans, but they're not happy with the Democrats either. So my advice to all of my friends that are running for office, whether you're on the red side or the blue side, and I'm on the blue side, is focus on the things that these people care about the most, because they feel like they're getting left behind. They feel like nobody cares about them. And right now they are underwater in terms of making ends meet, and they're not happy about it. And so that's that +1 number on the economy is actually a number that is attainable for us. The other two are more difficult. We got to focus on those things. You can be tough and smart on crime. You can believe that immigration is really an important issue, but you don't have to put people in a black hole without due process. There is absolutely a way, because as Harry said, it is a jump ball, but you have to pick it up and you have to put the ball in the hoop.
I do want to ask you about some of the things that we've been hearing from Donald Trump. He said in his speech at the Charlie Kirk Memorial that he hates his opponents and does not want the best for them. But at the same time, Trump is also pushing the Department of Justice to go after his enemies, political enemies. What do you make of this? And should Democrats be afraid? Should they be concerned that there is this push? Outspoken, it's not in the shadows. He's saying it, and he wants Pam Bondi to do something about it.
Well, first of all, the assassination of Charlie Kirk was awful and unacceptable under any terms. There should be no political violence in the United States of America for anyone at any time for the things that they believe in. And of course, the memorial service was an opportunity for the country to start healing and coming back together. And there was a lot of prayer. There was a lot of thought about that. And actually, Charlie Kirk's wife basically said, listen, we really have got to move into a new space. Unfortunately.
And she said she forgave his killer.
That is very consistent with the theory of the way we ought to be treating each other, as hard as that is. The president should bring the country together. He should not be speaking in the terms that he speaks of, and everybody in America should be concerned about that, whether you're a Republican, an independent, or a Democrat. That is really not about party. That is about who we are as Americans and whether or not we think that we can peacefully coexist in a country with 330 million people of different races, creeds, colors. It is also completely unacceptable for the president of the United States to use his power to hurt his political enemies. That is antithetical to what America is about. So the president should really tone it down. He should take this opportunity to bring the country together because that's what works for everybody. Unless you have that space, we really even can't have a reasonable debate about the price of housing or the price of cars or the price of energy. That's the thing that people care the most about. And I think every American has reason to be very concerned about the president's decision to say he hates his enemies and he wants to hurt them.
Let me lastly ask you about the prospect. There have been some reporting on Axios about the prospect of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez potentially running for either Schumer's Senate seat or the presidential candidacy in 2028. When you look at her and that possibility, what do you think of her as a potential candidate for these?
Well, first of all, she like Charlie Kirk, both of them have a charisma that attracts tons of different people. In 2028, you're going to see a plethora of candidates that span the entire spectrum. So I'll say have at it. She's got a bright future ahead of her, whether or not she can get elected to the Senate or to the presidency, who the heck knows. But I don't think you can deny that she has really tapped into something for her constituents that make her feel really good. I happen to like her very much. What I would say to whoever is running, especially on the Democratic side, and you can see this with Abigail Spanberger in Virginia, Mikey Sherrill in New Jersey. You can actually see it in New York. Those people that focus on the cost of living, and you make sure that the working class people see you, and make sure that you see them and hear them. They're concerned about healthcare costs. They're primarily concerned about housing. They're concerned about prices as well. So when you go to them and talk about democracy, which is a really important issue, what they say to me is, hey, Mitch, while you saving democracy, can you save me a couple of pennies so that I can support my family and put a roof over my head? Because if I can't do that, I can't breathe and actually don't have time to think about it, especially working class moms who are working 2 or 3 jobs, have to go home and take care of the father. They got to take care of their grandparents. They got their kids. They are completely, on just really in a bad way right now. And they want somebody to see them and help them fix their problems. And the people who do that are going to do well.
You're touching on something that we just talked about, which is the price of everything is going up. Childcare, healthcare,
Right.
Homes, cars.
Well, remember, President Trump came into office and said, I alone can fix it. And when I get in office, I'm gonna reduce the price of gas by half within 8 months. I am gonna fix the war in Ukraine. I'm gonna fix the war in Gaza. Everything's in chaos. Everything is a mess. But as Harry just said, you can't just criticize. You've got to pick up the ball. You got to put it in the hoop. And as Democrats, if we want to lead, we have to come up with answers to those problems. And if people think that we see them and trust them or focus on their issues, that's who they're going to put back in office.
It's great to have you. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
On
Nice to see you again.
And
So
I'll
he's
talk to
using
Harry about
he's using the example as the solution to the problem is democratic socialism. But socialism has always caused dislocations in markets, higher costs, less productivity in the society. But his solution is democratic socialism. AOC's got a bright future. The Democrats are going to have the solution for the problems in New York City. Really? The reality of the situation is political pragmatism. I coined the phrase. All right? The Republican Party because they are running the show in the legislative and in the executive. They need to pass legislation that taxes uber wealthy by 75% of their income. 75% of their income is taxed to reduce the power that they have for these PACs in the lobbying group. That money will help to pay for some of the debt, but not a lot of the debt. But it's about truncating their power because the uber wealthy have too much power because they have too much money. Secondly, social programs, Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security needs to be titrated with every 5 years where the actual benefits are reduced to slow down the deficit, to reduce the deficit, and to help pay for the debt. If they're already retired or they're about to retire within 4 years or 5 years, of 4 years, within the 4 years, they get their full benefits. But the next tranche of the individuals that are 5 years, maybe they only get 80% of the benefits. The next 5 years, that group that's going to retire in, they may only get 70% of it. And then you just keep on titrating this down to the point where there is a generation that gets nothing. But it's so far down the road when they're getting into the actual job market that they'll be able to be a saving society, not a spending society. So the problem is that we've spent too much and we've gone into too much debt. Now we have to move into a producing and saving society, not so much a consuming society. But you can't do it immediately because individuals that are just about ready to retire were retiring on the assumption of certain aspects of social programs, Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security. Now, if they're a veteran, they get full coverage of their medical care and Social Security. That's what a society should do to support our veterans. All right. If there is someone that is completely disabled, all right, no fault of their own, then the government should have a program for that. But the far majority of the people aren't disabled. And you have to have these programs to be very, very vigilant to make sure there aren't people that are trying to cheat the system. But the far majority of the people that are just moving into retirement are going to have to realize that their benefits are going to be truncated. But it's going to be truncated based on every 5 years for that new group that's coming in. So if you're retiring now, then you get your full benefits. The ones that are retiring within the next 5 years, they get less. The ones that are retiring 10 years from now, they get less. The ones that are retiring 15 years from now, they get less. And you have it staircased, or stepwise is what's the technical term. Stepwise reduced benefits. And that way, each generation, each cohort can prepare. And that's how we bring down the debt and the deficit. But the thing is that the Democrats don't want to reduce programs, and the Republicans don't want to tax the uber wealthy. But that is the solution to the problem. Please go to my store. Oh, in terms of healthcare, a lot of the healthcare that we pay for is because we're not eating properly. We're eating too many processed foods. We're not filtering our water. We're not exercising. We're not taking the proper supplementation. It's self-induced. Most diseases in the United States, most of the chronic diseases that cost billions, tens of billions, or hundreds of billions of dollars in healthcare is self-induced and can be reversed. And so we don't have to, this idea of who's going to help to pay for our healthcare. Well, wait a minute. Most of the healthcare is self-induced. Why do you need it if you can reverse the diabetes you have? Why do you need it if you can reverse the cardiovascular disease that you have? Why do you need it if you can reduce the incidences of cancer by just early screening? Take some initiative. This is where individualism kicks in. You need to take care of yourself and stop thinking that there's a collective, that it's all about collectivism. So how do you do that? Well, you have to change your lifestyle, and you have to know what to eat and what to take and, and stack, and you can slowly move yourself to health. But not just that, you have to be prepared when certain things are probably going to happen, like the fall and the winter. Because if you're chronically exposed to something that's really bad for you, then don't be shocked that there are other pathologies that start to manifest when you're older. Don't be surprised that your immune system doesn't work. Don't be surprised that you start having early onset dementia or other issues, immune system issues, endocrine system issues, bone issues. Don't be surprised. But you can mitigate all this by being prepared. So why don't you get prepared? Why don't you slow down that aging process so you can weather the storm? People that are weaker in their immune system, that are older, that have less energy, that are have less vitality, and they contract something, you notice they age faster. You notice they don't weather it very well. You ever wonder why? Oh, it's just their age. No, it's not. It has nothing to do with their age. It's the state of their tissues. It's the state of their immune system. It's the state of the health of their mitochondria. It's the state of their vascular system. It's the state of their bone density. It's not their age. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Be prepared for the fall and the winter. I can't tell you this enough. Be prepared for the fall and winter. If you have a throat irritation, get the drops and the lozenges. Make sure you use them to mitigate the problem. I have elderberry zinc in stock. The lozenges are larger. You get 21 in each bag. Get a few bags for your household. I also have drops, which are smaller. You get 100 in each bag. You can get it in cherry flavor, blueberry, and honey and lemon. Very high quality drops and lozenges. Have a few bags at your home and at work. And the moment you have that throat irritation, especially during the fall and winter season, make sure you take it right away. Because if you don't, you're going to regret it. I guarantee you this.
To donate, hit me. South Korea's president warning of potentially devastating effects tied to the country's trade deal with the U.S. Speaking with Reuters, the Korean president saying his country's economy could fall into crisis like the one it faced in 1997 if it were forced to take $350 billion and invest that amount of cash in the U.S. without a currency swap. He said the U.S. and Korea haven't formalized a trade deal reached in July because of disagreements over how Korean investments in the U.S. will work. And I think one of the big questions that we're starting to learn is all of these quote unquote investments that we've heard about, Joe, that people have bought down their tariffs. If you look at the amount of money, most of these countries don't really actually have that much money to be able to invest. And if you look at just the pure numbers, some of them are $400 billion, $500 billion. If you were to actually do that, these countries don't have that money to invest in the United States. So it's always been, I think, a perplexing question, and we haven't really probably asked the question enough. How realistic? We can lend them the money and they can invest in it. I'm just suggesting. and by the way, a lot of these deals you still are going to have to get, the local politicians to agree to, and a lot of them are saying, we're not doing that. So it's going to be pretty interesting to see what happens. Tariff money good? Money good? Well, tariff money is different. Is it money good when the Supreme Court finds? Oh, we don't know about that, are you?
All right, let's listen into Times Radio.
Let's speak to Professor Robert Ph.D, who's a political scientist and the director of the Chicago Project on Security and Threats. Robert, thank you for being with us tonight. I know that you have studied very closely political violence in the United States of America in the last couple of years. You point to something that we heard there in that depth, and we've heard a lot tonight from some of the bits that I've been able to pick up from this this memorial of sort of enemies, heroes, villains, those kind of characters being drawn, lines drawn in the sand in American politics at the moment.
So very nice to be with you here on this tragic day for America. One of the key things I think your audience should know is that I'm the professor who in June published a large op-ed in the New York Times saying we're on the brink of major political violence. And I'm sorry to say the assassination of Charlie Kirk was exactly the kind of event I was warning about. That piece has all kinds of reasons. It explains all that. But one of the big things you're seeing today in the Kirk funeral, which I watched until I come on your show, is most funerals are about the past. This is really not just about the present, but about the future. And what you heard and what you hear in speaker after speaker is how this movement, however you want to define it, you can find it as a religious movement, a political movement, you can define it even as a movement oriented around righteous justice, as Stephen Miller did, that is for his death. This is going to grow. And also, for decades, I've studied martyrdom in many different societies. And what you see is that there can be turning points, literally inflection points. We've already entered the era, I call the era of violent populism. I was warning about that. We're now in the grip of violent populism with high levels of political violence on both sides of the aisle. That also has been already a pattern where we have large tens of millions of Americans support political violence on both sides. This could actually grow as the months go on.
A slight side point this,
Gusto is the best choice for small business payroll. It's fast. It's trusted. It's a great value.
A slight side point this, I'm keen for your take on it, given your proximity to studying this. There was a story a few months ago of Democrat lawmakers who were politically assassinated. That doesn't appear to have contributed to the same sort of movement, inflection, sense of anger and outrage that this particular political assassination has. Why have they been greeted differently?
But that's why I published that op-ed in June in the New York Times. It wasn't a random piece. It was published a few days after the Minnesota political assassinations of those Democratic leaders, and it gave three really clear reasons why the next prominent assassination attempt or assassination was going to be a completely different animal. So number one, we had seen a string of political assassination and assassination attempts and other political violence growing, not just simply happening across both parties, but literally accelerating since January of 2025. That is, we've had over 100 Tesla attacks, which are political attacks against Elon Musk and the conservative Doge that he was doing with the U.S. government. Then we saw the assassination attempt against Democratic Governor Josh Shapiro that almost killed him and his family, literally minutes away, burning them to death here in April. Then in May, we saw the assassinations of the Israeli staffers in Washington, D.C. Then in June, we saw the big dust-up when Donald Trump sent ICE agents into LA, which caused a gigantic kerfuffle. That, of course, led to the coming of the Guard, et cetera, et cetera. And then we saw the Minnesota. So there's not just been like one event, sir. There's been a whole string of events. On top of that, we conduct surveys of support for political violence in the United States at my center, the Chicago Project on Security and Threats. We've been doing them for 4 years, about every 3 or 4 months. Our May survey showed the highest levels of support for political violence on both sides of the political aisle. 39% of Democrats agreed that the use of force was justified to remove Donald Trump from the presidency, while 25% of Republicans agreed the use of the U.S. military was justified to suppress Democratic protesters. These are tens of millions on either side. Then the third big element that happened in the middle of June was the true mobilization, the beginning of mobilization into two separate mobilized camps. That was with the No Kings protest on June 14th, the across many cities in America. And then Donald Trump's military parade on that same day, which galvanized millions of Americans watching that on Fox News. So you add all of this up together, and we were primed for the next event to be a far more explosive event. That's exactly what I warned about, and I'm sorry to say, exactly what happened.
And so what you're talking about there then is a broader change in the language and the style and the sort of aesthetics of politics in America to include, physical violence or physical muscle and physical strength or exploiting people's weaknesses.
I call it, yes, sir. I call this the era of violent populism.
Yes.
I invented that term. Because this is not a civil war and it's not politics as usual. So we needed a term to describe this violent style of politics, if you would, where it's suddenly okay for violence to be used to settle political scores.
Okay. Yeah.
And that's what I call violent populism.
Okay, I hear that. I wonder if that has just been ever thus. I mean, it has been the case for a very long time that America has leaned into its military, been very proud of its military. It's a military. It's always been a country sort of proud of its military might. We've talked for a long time, decades, about political suicide or taking out an opponent, or we've talked in these kind of terms, used this kind of language around our politics for a very long time. And there has also been political violence running through America's political history. Are things really that different?
There, in countries, not just the United In countries, not just the United States, but in countries around the world, when you see punctuated eras of political violence, that often corresponds to punctuated social change, major social change occurring in that punctuated period of time as well. The big social change in America now is, for the first time in our country's 250-year history, we are transitioning, we're in the transitional generation from a majority white democracy to a minority democracy. 1990, America was 76% non-Hispanic white. Today, we're 57% non-Hispanic white. It'll be another 10 or 15 years, depending on deportations, which you'll notice is almost all non-white people, until we would get to that minority position. Well, this is why our politics, when we have big social changes in a country, these shock politics, because a change like that will change which political party is going to win an election. It'll change literally who governs the country, and it'll also change the winners and losers in a country. And that's why you get much bigger stakes in elections, and why you get real violence in political violence at these punctuated periods of time. So this started the tipping point generation about 2015. I date the violence change on both sides to about 2017. Your listeners will have to come to our website, Chicago Project on Security and Threats, to hear the reasons. And so this really is the reason why it's suddenly upon us and escalating, and it can escalate a lot more, because this is not simply a function of one political leader, although some can make it better or worse.
Okay. And just finally, we often talk in these conversations about one side being worse than the other. You're going to hear a lot tonight at this Charlie Kirk Memorial about the left being responsible for political violence in America. You'll hear a lot from the left. The right are responsible for political violence in America, and they'll point to moments like the insurrection, Democrats being killed, and the right will point to moments like Charlie Kirk's assassination. How do you greet those arguments?
It's much more balanced. So each side wants to believe the other is mostly at fault. That's how politicians work. That's just not the case. So since 2022, You've had the assassination attempt against conservative Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh, the assassination attempt against Democratic leader in the House, Nancy Pelosi. Last year, 2 assassination attempts against Republican candidate for President Donald Trump. That just went through. Democratic leader of the House, Democratic governor of Pennsylvania, Josh Shapiro. The Minnesota assassinations of political leaders in June. Now the assassination of major MAGA political leader Charlie Kirk. Now what you are seeing is a roughly balanced size. And again, much more information on all the balance of this on our CPOST, Chicago Project on Security and Threats website than I have time to give you in 20 seconds.
Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get ready for the war that's going to be happening in the United States because of this inflection point of the changing demographic and the shift of the minorities running the country. The reality of the situation is this. Yes, are there going to be more minorities in the United States as they, age in and start voting? But not all those minorities are going to go to the Democratic Party. Many of them are going to build businesses. Many of them are going to be more conservative. Many of them are going to be voting Republican. If you look at the situation, many people that voted for Trump were actually Latino. So to assume that it's only the minority that's going to be going to the Democratic Party, I think is ridiculous. But there's definitely a shift in perspectives. Now, the question is how much, the bigger question is this, not so much what's the demographic of the shift of power relative to ethnicity. What's more important is this, within those ethnic groups, how many of them have actually integrated themselves into American culture versus staying ghettoized. That is way more important of a lens of what's happening. If they continue the ghettoization, then we're going to have political conflict. If you're going to have individuals that actually plugged in and assimilated to American culture, then it won't matter. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the nattokinase. Nattokinase is fibrinolytic. It's going to break up clots. It also helps to bring down your LDL levels and increase your HDL levels. This is very important for cardiovascular health, but you also should be taking this in the fall and the winter. Trust me, take it. Olive leaf extract is synergistic with nattokinase, but you can take olive leaf extract by itself. Olive leaf extract brings down inflammation at the vascular level and systemically. That's going to help to boost up that immune system and help with your cardiovascular health. And olive leaf extract helps to bring down LDL levels and increase your HDL levels. So it's a great way to improve your cardiovascular health and your immune system. But stack them together, olive leaf extract and nattokinase, and take them especially during the fall and the winter. Why? Because what's coming is going to cause problems with your cardiovascular system. That's why. Magnesium and zinc boosts up your immune system, but also your brain function. Super important. And magnesium increases the efficacy of vitamin D3. And you're going to need a lot of vitamin D3 during the fall and the winter. Trust me. Vitamin C and magnesium helps to improve your skin, boost up your immune system, and helps with your brain function. And guess what? A lot of people that you will know within the next 5 years, or you may have already started seeing it within yourself or with people around you, especially people that are 40 years of age or older. Guess what? Within the next 5 years, or it's already started happening, you're going to know 30% of your family or friends or coworkers, 40%, 30% of them are going to have early onset of dementia. And the majority of those are due to the crisis that we went through in 2020. So you better start protecting your neurons. You're going to need to protect your neurons. You don't be surprised that you go, can't find how to write a sentence or say a sentence, or have gait issues or Parkinsonian shakes, don't be surprised. You can mitigate it if you pay attention. And it's a holistic approach. You have to activate those neurons. You have to activate that cerebellum. You got to do resistance training, stretching exercises, balancing exercises, a little bit of cardio to get the better blood flow, taking the supplementation that improves the microenvironment to promote positive neuroplasticity, reduce inflammation, maintain the myelin sheath of those neurons. And when you do that, you're mitigating the problem. See, if you have a lot of cerebral inflammation, your neurons are going to die and turn your head into Swiss cheese slowly. But also, if you have poor vascular health and you have microclotting or microhemorrhaging, your brain isn't getting the blood flow it needs, and those neurons die. So 70%, 75% of the individuals that are going to be getting this early onset of dementia is due to vascular issue. Another 24% is going to be due to amyloidosis, building up of proteins that aren't broken up by proteases. And less than 1% will be due to prion. That's what's going to happen. Now, are you going to prepare for it or not? 75% is due to vascular. 24%, a little bit more than 24%, is due to amyloidosis. Now, both of those can be mitigated by taking and following a certain protocol. But if you don't prepare for it, if you just think that you're fine and you don't have any, you'll be fine because you're just Superman or Superwoman, don't be surprised that something bad happens to you within the next 5 years. Because a lot of people are going to have this problem. Just like there's a lot of people having immune issues. They're having their CD4, effective CD4 count, not working. It's lower. The effective CD4 may have a normal CD4 count, but the effective CD4 count, the stuff that's actually what's supposed to be working for you, isn't working. I've gone in detail on why that is. But you don't want to listen? Don't listen. It's up to you. I don't really fucking care. Vitamin C and magnesium boost up that immune system, help with your skin, and help with your brain function. Magnesium and zinc helps with your immune system and brain function. And it's really important to take so you supercharge your vitamin D3.
If your pet goes from weird to weirder, grouchy to grouchier.
The UK, Australia, and Canada are formally recognizing a Palestinian state yesterday. UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer writing on X this. To revive the hope of peace for the Palestinians and Israelis and the two-state solution, the United Kingdom formally recognizes the state of Palestine. They explain further in a video.
Let me just go off on a quick tangent. The big issue right now, Trump's $100,000 visa targets $280 billion of India success story. All right. You worried about the $100,000 H-1B visa? Or are you more worried about early onset of dementia because of someone or a group of people doing things that they shouldn't be doing that affected the whole world? Which one's more important? But not just that. Let's just go into the H-1B $100,000 proposal that Trump is stating. I have seen in automotive back in the early 2000s how companies were, especially tier ones and OEMs, were trying to cut their engineering costs. And what they would do is they would hire 4 engineers for the price of 1 American engineer. 4 engineers and they would go through a like a contract company from India, typically Tata, and they would bring them over. Tata would sponsor their H-1B visa, and Tata would get the contract from the OEM or the tier one, and they'd be designing the parts. Now, what normally happened is they didn't know how to design the car. They didn't know how to design the sub-assemblies. So they had to have an American engineer to tell them how to do it. So the American engineer ended up being the program manager. And this was the technology transfer. So this is a success story because the OEM, the tier one, were looking for labor arbitrage? No, no. And you notice it's $100,000 per one. Notice that? Because what that does is it equalizes. It equalizes. They can't do the four for one engineer ratio. 4 Indian engineers for every 1 American engineer. When you do this, you eliminate the labor arbitrage. So I'm totally for raising the H-1B visa, especially against the Indians. Because Americans are coming out of engineering school, Americans are coming out of college, and the jobs aren't as plentiful. Meanwhile, they have plenty of H-1B visa holders in the United States. And don't believe the horse shit that say they are better. They're not better. Most of them don't know how to do anything. There's no way to say that these H-1B visa holders are better than an American engineer, no matter what I saw it in automotive. Now, it's happening also in tech. Wake up, America.
Let's be frank. Hamas is a brutal terror organization. Our call for a genuine two-state solution is the exact opposite of their hateful vision. So we are clear, this solution is not a reward for Hamas because it means Hamas can have no future, no role in government, no role in security. And we have already prescribed and sanctioned Hamas, and we will go further.
President Trump disagrees, telling reporters pressuring Israel into a longer-term solution would be a reward to Hamas. The president will meet with dozens of world leaders tomorrow at the 80th UN General Assembly here in New York, which gets underway today. More key U.S. allies also expected to recognize Palestinian statehood, including France and Saudi Arabia. On the two-state solution, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu simply says, quote, "It will not happen." Let's bring in Heritage Foundation, Margaret Thatcher, Center for Freedom Director, Niall, your reaction to this, because France, the UK, and Canada all today are planning when the UN General Assembly opens to make this proclamation, which flies in the face of what the host country, which is the United States, believes.
Well, thank you for having me on the show today. And this is undoubtedly a shameful move by the British, French, Canadian, and Australian governments. It sends completely the wrong signal. It is a gift to Hamas and completely undermines Israel and also the United States as well. And this is a reward for terrorism, basically. And I do think it's the worst foreign policy decision taken by a British Prime Minister in many, many decades. It's an absolute disgrace. It's shameful. And I do think this is incredibly dangerous, what we're seeing right now.
But it's surprising that Keir Starmer would make this move. Keir Starmer has his own issues in his country. His polling is unpopular. It shows his unpopularity there. Why would he, especially after that grand event and spectacle we saw with the state dinner and the royals, why would they now come out and make this move? By the way, knowing that the two sides, neither is going to approve this. Neither is going to allow for a Palestinian state. Hamas refuses to leave Gaza, and the Israelis aren't going to allow this. So what's the point?
Yeah, it's a shockingly bad move. And an opinion poll published yesterday showed that 9 out of 10 Britons actually oppose the recognition of the Palestinian state. So what Keir Starmer is doing is he's appeasing the far left elements of his own party, including Islamic elements as well, who form a voting bloc in the UK. And I do think also that Keir Starmer, in many respects, is the worst British Prime Minister of the modern era. His approval 20%, hugely unpopular among the British people, already a lame duck after just a year in office. And this is a catastrophically stupid move by Keir Starmer. The original idea, of course, came from Emmanuel Macron, the French president, who was also a lame duck president. So this is going to be an absolute disaster, and it's also going to cause significant tensions between the UK and Israel and the United States as well. So a huge own goal by Keir Starmer.
As the UN General Assembly begins today, it is a surprise, certainly. You know, the President Trump has invited King Charles and Queen Camilla to the White House next year after that historic second state visit to the UK last week. A lot of amazing pomp and circumstance that we witnessed live on this program. The President and First Lady Melania Trump did, meet with the King and Queen, Prince William, Princess Kate, and they participated in that beautiful dinner and other, public-facing events. The President and Prime Minister Starmer, though, did sign a $350 billion tech deal. This boosts AI investment and nuclear power between the two countries, and it includes investments from Microsoft, Google, NVIDIA, OpenAI, and more for them, for the UK. You were in London during the state visit. What was your reaction to the final deal that was made on the second day, which was the day that really business was conducted between the United States and the UK?
Yes, and I just got back to the US late last night from London, and the state visit overall was a huge success. And I think it demonstrated the tremendous importance of the US-UK special relationship, and also illustrated that Donald Trump is the unrivaled leader of the free world. This was a very successful visit on multiple fronts. In terms of the investment deal, of course, this is a great deal for the UK, but also for US companies as well, plowing hundreds of billions of dollars into the UK. It's a vote of confidence, of course, in Brexit. I think there's real skepticism here in Washington with regard to how the European Union is doing. But I think there's more faith in the long-term future of Brexit Britain outside of the European Union. And I think this is overall a very big deal that will benefit US companies and also the UK economy as well. So I think it's a win-win for both sides. And it's an illustration really of the power and the enduring strength and importance of the US-UK special relationship, the beating heart of the free world in so many respects. And I do think last week's state visit was an absolute triumph, of course, for President Trump, a great moment, I think, for American leadership on the world stage, and also a very good moment as well for Great Britain and the British monarchy. Britain at its very best, I think.
Yeah, certainly. But again, the elephant in the room was the digital services tax. The elimination of that, I think, would be an incredible goal to look forward to.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that needs to be dealt with promptly. Nell Gardner, thank you so much for being with us this morning. Certainly appreciate it.
My pleasure. Many thanks.
What's your credit card debt balance? If it's $10,000 or more, here are 3 easy solutions you can start implementing today. Number 1, the first step to tackling your credit card debt.
The Foreign Secretary Bitchute says she's warned Israel not to annex parts of the West Bank in retaliation for the UK's formal recognition of Palestinian statehood. She said that the government was committed to a 2-state solution in the region. Ms. Cooper was speaking to the BBC before attending the UN General Assembly in New York, where France and other European states are due to make a similar announcement. Well, this follows Sunday's coordinated announcements by the UK, Canada, Australia, and Portugal. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has accused those who recognise Palestine of rewarding terrorists. He insisted Palestinian statehood would not happen. And the Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas welcomed the move as a step towards lasting regional peace. Hamas called it a victory. Here's our diplomatic correspondent, James Landale.
The West Bank, East Jerusalem, and Gaza may be occupied Palestinian territories, but do they form a state? Yesterday, Britain, Canada, and Australia said they did. And at the United Nations today, France and several other European nations will follow suit. and make similar declarations.
This is very much a joint effort. Western countries coming together to try to maximize the impact, to send a signal to Israel and its allies that they believe international opinion on this is only heading in one direction.
The Foreign Secretary told us the UK had taken a moral decision to challenge the idea there could never be a Palestinian state.
That is doing what extremists on all sides want, which is abandoning any prospect of a two-state solution. But it is incumbent on us now to revive the whole vision, the purpose of a two-state solution.
How concerned are you about the risk of Israel using this as a pretext to start annexing parts of the West Bank?
We have been clear, and I have been clear to the Israeli foreign minister, we have been clear to the Israeli government that they must not do that.
The idea that Gaza, devastated by war, and the West Bank, filled with Israeli settlements, could form a single state might seem a distant prospect. And Israel's Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, said it would never happen, saying a Palestinian state would be a terror state. But the man leading the UN's aid agency in Gaza told us a Palestinian state was possible, only if there was a ceasefire.
The declaration is not enough. The declaration are words for the time being. Now we have to walk the talk. So this declaration needs now to be accompanied by this genuine commitment to make the resolve of the Palestinian-Israeli conflict a top priority.
Western powers want to give Palestinians what they call a horizon of hope, but they need a ceasefire first. James Landau, BBC News, New York.
Well, we're going to discuss all those points with a number of guests throughout the day. Firstly, we're going to cross over to speak to our Gaza correspondent, Rushdie Abu-Alouf, who joins us from Istanbul. And Rushdie, although this has been welcomed by Mahmoud Abbas, obviously there are concerns that Israel remains opposed to a two-state solution. The Israeli government has a hard line within the government, and there are those threats of retaliation through more annexations of parts of the occupied West Bank.
Yes, that's what the Palestinians in the West Bank are fearing the most now, is that the Israeli reaction to this new recognition would be on the ground, and they're already, suffering from different problems in the West Bank. And one of them is the expansion of the Israeli settlements and the violation of the Jewish settlers against Palestinians everywhere. And the Palestinians were talking about it, very long debate in the social media about this. The people in the West Bank feel that this would push Israel to annex the part of the West Bank. The people in East Jerusalem believe that this move would push Israel to tighten more the security grip in the people in the West Bank. But most important, the people in Gaza, who believe that this step is welcomed, because they have been dreaming for 70 years, over 70 years, to have their Palestinian state, and any country is recognizing their right to have their state is welcome. But they said unless this move is stopping what they are living and what they are describing as the hell in Gaza, this is very late step. That's what the people in Gaza said.
And there's also a question mark over tangibly, realistically, how this would look, because, of course, Palestinians in the occupied territories have been fragmented enormously into separate small places. There is a difficulty to see how these territories will potentially be governed going forward. Arguably, the UK government insisted that Hamas has no place in Gaza, whereas who potentially would realistically command and govern these areas?
Well, for a very long time, the Palestinian political division was deep in the crisis because Hamas for the 17 years was in charge of Gaza, and no one knows whether after this war Hamas will be in charge or not, because they still exist on the ground and they still have some force in parts of Gaza. And the BA, which run by Fatah, is in the West Bank. So all the time Palestinians were calling first to have their unity between the factions, so they can stand in the front of everyone, most Palestinians say, and ask for their state. Now, it's a very complicated situation in the West Bank. The Israeli expansion of settlements, the Israeli, daily incursion of Palestinian city, Palestinian Authority is losing control of most of the refugee camp in the West Bank. Hamas is devastated in Gaza, and the people in East Jerusalem have no hope. So people say there is a Palestinian state in the paper, but on the ground, it's impossible now.
Rushdie, for the time being, as always, many thanks. Our Gaza correspondent there, Rushdie Abu-Alif, joining us from Istanbul. Let's cross over to Jerusalem because my colleague Yolande Nell, our Middle East correspondent, joins us live now. And Yolande, we heard strong words yesterday from Benjamin Netanyahu. Today, it looks like Israeli military forces are really doubling down across Gaza. And of course, we're expecting Benjamin Netanyahu to be at the UN during this week, where again he'll reiterate his strong response.
That's right. What we've had so far from Israeli leaders has been a very defiant, angry response, and you can see why Palestinians are actually in Bethlehem in the West Bank today. People are worried about the backlash of all of this, as much as they might broadly welcome the moves towards recognition. So what the Prime Minister of Israel has said already, he said that there will be no Palestinian state west of the Jordan River. That's in the land that I'm on at the moment. He's pledged to continue expanding Israeli settlements on land that Palestinians want for a state of their own. And just around Bethlehem, you can see more and more of these little outposts that have popped up in the 2 years that the Gaza war has been on, while world attention has really been very distracted from here. But the Prime Minister is not giving at the moment an indication of what his full response will be to these diplomatic moves. He said he's going to make further announcements when he returns from the US, having both given his address at the General Assembly and also met with President Trump, with the US, of course, being such a key ally here. The US said that it was performative, these moves that have taken place, but it will be very difficult, I think, for the US to deal with annexation. That will just complicate Israel's ties even more with other Arab countries in the region.
Indeed, Yolande, as always, many thanks. Yolande now they're joining us live from Jerusalem.
This is setting up for a larger conflict that's going to accelerate this year and into next. I'm very concerned of 2026 in September 2026. But things that are happening now, and as we move into 2026, it's going to be very problematic. Very problematic. You have nations like France and the UK that are going bankrupt, telling everybody else in the world how to run their country. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the heirloom barley. This will help to detoxify your body, bring down inflammation, and soak up free radicals through superoxide dismutase. This is a high-density protein, very high quality. It's important that you detoxify your body regularly so your organ systems perform better, including your brain, your immune system, and your endocrine system. Bringing down inflammation is super important for your immune system, your endocrine system, and your brain function. And soaking up free radicals is going to slow down the aging process. Take this regularly, and you're going to notice that your body is performing better, and you're slowing down the aging process. You'll have more vitality. Also, take collagen. Collagen is a dual-purpose supplement. It's a powder. This is a month's supply. Mix it with soft foods, filtered water, a smoothie, or even with milk. But take it every day. Do resistance training. It's going to help with your musculature, your bone density, joint health and cartilage, skin, hair, and nails. Take it every day. Super important. Please go to my store. Use discount 5, all caps, discount 5. You get $5 off any order. You spend $100 or more, you get a free gift until supplies last. And you are going to need that free gift for the fall and the winter, trust me. But if you don't want to pay attention, it's your own damn fault.
I had a great role with President Xi, and as you know, he approved the TikTok deal. And we're in the process. We have some great investors, some of the biggest in the world, American investors, great people. And we look forward to getting that deal closed.
Are you confident that the CCP won't be exerting control?
Yeah, we're gonna have a very tight control. I want to thank President Xi because he was a gentleman. And we just had a good relationship.
President Trump explaining more about the TikTok deal reached between the White House and Beijing after spending 2 hours on the phone with Chinese President Xi Jinping on Friday. Now, the Wall Street Journal reporting the president will approve the deal via executive order later this week, writing, quote, the algorithm that suggests content will get an overhaul, but users likely won't need to download a new app, according to a senior White House official. This is from the Wall Street Journal. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt further clarifying who is going to control the app. Watch this.
We are 100% confident that a deal is done. Now that deal just needs to be signed, and the president's team is working with their Chinese counterparts to do just that. This deal means that TikTok will be majority owned by Americans in the United States. There will be 7 seats on the board that control the app in the United States, and 6 of those seats will be Americans. And the data and privacy will be led by one of America's greatest tech companies, Oracle, and the algorithm will also be controlled by America as well.
President Trump also says he's going to meet with Xi Jinping in person next month at the APEC summit in South Korea. That would be their first face-to-face sit-down since 2019. He posted about further plans on True Social. Here's what he wrote. I would go to China in the early part of next year, and that President Xi would likewise come to the United States at an appropriate time. Want to bring in Gaystone Institute senior fellow Gordon Chang. Gordon, your reaction in particular to President Trump saying, I'm going to go to Beijing.
Yeah, I'm not happy about the president going to Beijing. The reason is that the Chinese will spin that as a vassal going to the Grand Celestial Court. This is not just Communist Party diplomacy. This is Chinese diplomacy over the course of 2 millennia. I'm happy if he goes, but only after Xi Jinping comes to the United States. Now, I'm sure that President Trump doesn't believe that he's a vassal, but the point is that Chinese will tell others around the world that that is the case. And that will make it more difficult for President Trump to actually accomplish his goals because people will be believing the Chinese narrative. So I hope that President Trump does something that upsets that narrative. I'm positive that he'll do that, because he does assert America first.
But you also bring up worries about the algorithm on the TikTok deal. And I want to ask you about this because you said there are disturbing indications. The most important aspect of the deal, control of the curation algorithm, will be unsatisfactory. What do you mean by that, Gordon?
Well, first of all, the algorithm will be licensed from China, according to Wall Street Journal reporting. And they say in the journal that U.S. engineers will work on it. That could be okay, but we need to see the details on that because the devil is in those details. This curation algorithm is critical because China has used it to exacerbate social divisions in the U.S., to meddle in our elections, to promote social ills like suicide and illicit drug use, and to promote Hamas and other terrorist groups. So clearly control is critical. Now, the thing that bothers me a little bit is that the Chinese Foreign Ministry, which had the official Beijing readout, has not confirmed that there was a deal. They just said that Chinese enterprises are free to negotiate with foreigners as long as they comply with Chinese law. And Chinese law prohibits the exportation of technology like the curation algorithm.
Well, it's because I'm assuming, my sense is that there are other things within the trade negotiations that the Chinese want, and you give on TikTok, you negotiate somewhere else, but we'll see what happens with those negotiations. Channel Desh's on the set with us, Gordon. She had a question for you.
Yeah, Gordon, I wanted to ask about the actual law itself that Congress and Joe Biden passed last year, and whether or not ByteDance maintaining a board seat, one of the 7 board seats, will even be compliant with the law. Because my understanding is that under Chinese law, if ByteDance has a board seat, you still have the intelligence sharing with the CCP. So does the deal, the infrastructure of the deal, does it even satisfy what is technically legally binding?
That's a great question. The law talks about divestiture. And under the deal, ByteDance will own something like 20% of the new TikTok. And it's not clear that that actually complies with the law. The thing about board control is, I think, a little bit different because board control is not mentioned in the federal law, but ownership is. The most important things, though, are going to be control of the data, because we don't want China to use the app to continue to steal the data of Americans, and the curation algorithm. So I focus on those two things rather than the ownership.
Okay, that's interesting that you say that. Well, again, more details are needed. I do want to ask you about this. South Korea's president is sounding the alarm on his country's economy, saying that U.S. investment demands in these stalled trade talks could send South Korea into a crisis, rivaling the 1997 meltdown. This is over the pledge of $350 billion. And here's what he said. Without a currency swap, if we, South Korea, were to withdraw $350 billion in the manner that the U.S. is demanding and invest all the money in the U.S., South Korea would face a situation as it had in the 97 financial crisis. That was through a translator. Gordon, what do you make of these comments?
I think they're overblown.
Tell me this. What is greatness made of? Is it in your drive? Power you possess?
I think they're overblown. Lee Jae-myung does not like the United States. When he was running for president in 2021, when he's trying to get the nomination of his party, he called American troops an occupying force. And more explosively, he blamed the United States for continued Japanese colonial rule. His government has been doing a number of things to undermine our treaty alliance with South Korea. And he's appointed a number of people in his cabinet who have views which are very pro-North Korean, very anti-US. So he's going to try to do anything to prevent a trade deal and also to prevent any sort of investment back. Because he doesn't want to strengthen the bonds between the United States and his country. The only fortunate thing in this whole story, Cheryl, is that the people in Korea like the United States. They like us more than they have in decades. And they've been taking to the streets to protest Lee Jae-myung's treatment of the U.S. So there's a lot going on here, but South Korea clearly is in turmoil, and our relations with South Korea that go back to the Korean War are very much in jeopardy.
Yeah, interesting that you say that. Yeah, I found those comments very interesting just because, in particular with the whole Hyundai worker, drama that we had a week and a half ago. Real quick before you go, Gordon, not a lot of time, but we had this bipartisan group of lawmakers that visited China yesterday. This is Democratic Congressman Adam Smith leading the trip. They met with China's premier. Bilateral ties was the discussion. There hasn't been something like this since 2019. Apparently, they also discussed economic military cooperation. Military cooperation, Gordon. What do you make of this?
Well, everyone wants the two militaries to talk, but we have had established channels with the Chinese military, and they don't work. And the reason is that Chinese military officers won't pick up the phone until political leaders have decided critical questions. So mill-to-mill communications, it sounds great, but, in history, they just have not fulfilled their promise. I don't believe that we should be promoting this at this time, especially given a number of other factors. But, we'll sort of work this out, but we don't need congressmen going to Beijing right now. It absolutely sends the wrong signal.
Gordon Chang, great to see you as always. Thanks so much. A lot of ground cover.
I personally think we need to be more belligerent against China. We have to fight the CCP. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the zeolite. This will remove heavy metals, toxins, and chemicals in your body. It'll allow you to urinate them out within 6 to 8 hours. You should be detoxifying your body regularly, preferably every day. Take 3 small drops underneath your tongue, drink the filtered water, and do that every day. Very simple. And also, make sure that you stay away from processed foods, filter your water, and clean your environment. In your home, take a look at the cleaning supplies that you have, paints, or even pesticides. And if you need those chemicals in your home, make sure they're in a double layered container. That way, you're not breathing in small concentrations daily. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Make sure you detoxify your body every day with zeolite. Also, if you're 40 years of age or older, male or female, you have a hard time building muscle. Do resistance training and take Myotrol. Myotrol has polyphenols, flavonoids, and lignans to help with the gene expression to build muscle. It also improves the health of your mitochondria so you have energy to build muscle. Take Myotrol every day. If you're an athlete, younger and older, you will benefit from Myotrol to build muscle and to recover quicker after your workout. Clarity factor, really important to get rid of that brain fog so you can concentrate on the tasks that you need to concentrate on. Over time, by taking clarity factor and drinking it with filtered water, you're going to improve that neuroplasticity so you're thinking faster and your memory is improved. Super important. This is a very important neurostack. Now, take the clarity factor for brain function, Myotrol for your musculature, and zeolite to detoxify your body. When you detoxify your body, you're improving your brain function, you're improving your neurons, you're improving your cardiovascular system, you're improving your liver and your kidney. You're improving your immune system, your endocrine system. Very important. This is a great stack. Please go to my store. Use discount 5 to get $5 off any order. You spend $100 or more, you get a free gift until supplies last. And oh, by the way, that free gift is going to help you in the fall and the winter. You're going to need it. Trust me.
College campuses are buzzing with activity as students return after summer break, but change is also in the air. At more than 400 colleges and universities, programs and centers that promote diversity, equity, and inclusion have been eliminated or rebranded. DEI programs have been under a microscope since state laws and President Trump's executive orders labeled them as discriminatory. So what's the future of DEI in higher education? Paulette Granberry-Russell, President and CEO of the National Association of Diversity Officers in Higher Education, is here to tell us more. It's part of our Rethinking College series. Paulette, thank you so much for joining us. Your organization is more than 20 years old, which seems to underscore the fact that these efforts to promote diversity on college campuses is not new. But do you think that history is reflected in the current national conversation we're having about DEI?
As you referenced, the organization that I helped to lead has been around for 20 years, but that is not representative of the efforts within our colleges and universities to become a more welcoming, supportive environment for students based on diverse backgrounds, identities, lived experiences. So we've had quite a bit of work over I'd say the last 60 plus years to create a more supportive environment for all of our students.
And some of them have told us about the ways in which these types of programs help them get access to specific scholarships, programs, centers designed to encourage diversity. We spoke to one student at the University of Texas, Dallas, to find out what these programs on his campus meant to him.
When I did have access to DEI programs, they helped me a lot in being able to find a community where there was none. It's very easy as a Latino to feel very lost, especially if you're coming from a low income background like me. That helped me find a lot of common community with people who genuinely cared about what was going on around them, and also helped me find access to conferences and programs that I wouldn't have known otherwise.
So what are some of those real world changes that you're
telling me that a DEI department that is supported by usually taxpayer dollars, because most of them are state schools, or at least grants coming from the federal government or at the state level. But you have a bloated out administrative cost, and these people can't use ChatGPT to find these types of conferences or Google it. They're going to college. Don't they know how to do research? I mean, fucking A. That's number one issue. There is an implicit requirement of colleges, private or public, to create citizens that are productive. But what are they churning out lately, especially in the last 5 years? But if we listen to that other video of that inflection point, that we played earlier in this broadcast, he mentioned that turning point and that conflict started around 2015 or 2017. So we're talking almost 10 years ago. But the thing is that they're churning out students that are ultra liberal, that are less productive, that don't affiliate with God, country, and family, under the disguises, oh, we need diversity. No, what you need is to produce a student that can get a job. You need to produce a student that doesn't bring down the country. You need to produce a student that doesn't burn down the town. You need to produce a student that's not like Mondani, not like Mayor Wu in Boston, that's literally leading her city into a shithole because they're socialists. But let's just have DEI. Let's just keep on pushing DEI. The schools have failed. And the American taxpayers shouldn't be paying for this.
Now, or anticipate happening in the future, now that some of these programs are going away?
I think across the country, we've seen efforts both at the state level and certainly more recently with the executive orders to dismantle diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts. We are seeing women's centers. We're seeing centers for members of the LGBTQ community, other cultural.
Why do you need these? Why do you need these? Let me give you an example. All right, at Harvard, all right, one of the most elite institutions in the country, in the United States. The elite, in my opinion, but it is one of the elite institutions. And you had groups within the graduating class for the last several years where they have their own ethnic celebration before the actual commencements. They almost have like their own private commencement party. And then they decided to do away with it because of all the craziness that was going on at Harvard. But they should have never had that to begin with. I thought this was about inclusion within the graduating body. The graduates or the undergraduates. That whole community of individuals graduating for that class, no matter what their discipline was in, should have been an inclusive experience. Not ghettoizing themselves in different parts of the campus to do their private ceremony. Now, they did away with that. I don't think they brought it back. They did away with it this year. Or the last commencement, let's put it that way. But how is that inclusive? See, inclusive isn't inclusive. DEI, it's a system to try to have a minority group start exercising authority over an institution, either your university or your work or whatever. All right. Instead of actually being a productive citizen, using your constitutional rights and all that stuff, right, to win the rhetorical argument in the public space. But no, that's not how it works. That's not how their operating procedure is. They want to bring in lots of DEI, push a Marxist ultra-liberal agenda, have these people get into corporate America, and then hire individuals that are of similar ilk. And then all of a sudden you have companies like Cracker Barrel that you have a CEO that didn't understand their actual customer and tanked the stock. Or Nike being woke and losing market share. Or Bud Light destroyed an American brand. This is all DEI. This is all DEI. So why do you really need these things? We're not talking about preventing people from getting into the university that are LGBTQ, RS, XYZ, plus, whatever, to the 10th power. We're not saying that different minorities shouldn't be in college, but you should be a productive citizen. You should have an affinity to God, country, or family, or at least some spirituality if you don't believe in God. But you have to have some morality. Now, people would say, well, what about the foreigner, coming in? Should they have an affinity for the American, flag or the American government system? No, they should have affinity to their own. But the thing is they're producing ultra-liberal students that don't have these three pillars. They may have one, they may have two, but usually don't have three. And it's a problem. It's a problem. Why do we fund this crap? Why? Why? You're telling me that minority students can't get into schools? Well, what about all these endowments? What about these special grants? And you know what? Guess what? The affordability, everyone can take out a loan. Don't give me that crap. If you really want to go to the college, you can take out a loan. Oh, by the way, if you can't afford it, why don't you go into the military and use the GI Bill? Oh, you're too special to actually serve your country? Is that what you're saying? Is that what the student body is saying? That they're too smart to actually serve your country? Do you know that it is harder to get into West Point than Harvard?
Funded. And it's clear, I think, as represented by the student, that these spaces were built over decades as a direct response to student needs, and their disappearance is deeply troubling.
No.
Those disappearances, do you anticipate?
They were no. Time out. They were developed as an extension to affirmative action, and affirmative action was sunsetted by the Supreme Court because they said enough is enough. The minorities have now gotten to a point where they can lift themselves up. So this is really a legacy from affirmative action. They just rebranded it.
They already have to demographic shifts as incoming students consider where they want to apply.
Well, it could. And if those individuals do not feel that campus is either respectful or supportive of their needs,
don't go.
Then it is possible that they will seek support in other colleges and universities across the country. But what should be noted is that these centers are not extras to campus life. They act as vital resources that ensure that all students, not just some students, are supported in their education.
The Trump administration this week announced.
All right, so where's the slippery slope? Let's say you bring in a bunch of Muslims into your school, and all of a sudden that they want Sharia in the school system, in the constitution of the school. Maybe they're demanding Sharia in their state. You're supposed to support that? At what point is it unacceptable to support? And at what point is it acceptable to support? It's a slippery slope.
$500 million increase in funding to historically Black colleges and universities, while at the same time cutting funding for colleges that mainly serve Hispanic students. How does that change fit into this administration's agenda when it comes to promoting diversity on college campuses?
At its core, our perspective is that this is not a win for students. It is a zero-sum approach. Funding resources are already scarce and potentially results in these institutions being pitted against each other. And all of these institutions, whether they are HBCUs, tribal colleges, Hispanic serving, minority serving institutions, they play a vital role in expanding access and opportunity for all students.
The Trump administration has also said that getting rid of some of these initiatives will lead to a society of, quote, colorblind and competence-based workplaces. How do you think about that vision as articulated there, and
What's wrong with
and
it?
what does it mean to you?
What's wrong with
Well, I think
meritocracy?
a colorblind employment environment, while a noble goal, that is not the reality of individuals' lived experiences or their sense of community. Our communities are diverse. People are not necessarily uncomfortable.
This is really the problem. There are many people that have ghettoized themselves, no matter what religion or ethnicity, they've ghettoized themselves and they have lost affinity to country. This is why I keep on saying you can look at the problems of society under the rubric of God, country, and family. And you will get to the core of the issue. So stop being ghettoized. Start being an American, not a hyphen American, not an African American. I don't even know what an African American is. What does that mean? What does that mean? No, they're black. Italian American? What does that mean? No, you're an American. You're not an Italian. Suck it up. This hyphenated crap is bullshit.
Extending themselves across communities, but there are times when, in fact, we do not anticipate, nor should we expect, that every community is going to be welcoming and supportive. That is not the country that we live in currently. We have a long ways to go. And I think to achieve a colorblind society or country, while noble, I don't think that's the reality, nor do I think somehow diminishing culture and experiences.
So let me get this straight. You're supposed to have a DEI program at your corporation and allow a bitch boss to elevate up the corporation, not have the skill set, decide to change the logo of your company, and then tank the stock. And therefore, your company might go bankrupt. But hey, you know, we elevated someone into a prominent position, but didn't really deserve it. Oh, wait a minute. Isn't that what Cracker Barrel did? They took the cracker and the barrel out of the fucking logo. What? What stupid ass would think that? Oh, a DEI hire for CEO.
What is valued about this democracy.
Paulette Granberry Russell with the National Association of Diversity Officers in Higher Education. Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm. And thank you, Allie, for this opportunity.
Yeah, well. All right. Before we go to the next video, we're probably going to pivot over to Bloomberg here. I'm not sure. They're talking something about the White House. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the omega-3. This will help with your cardiovascular health. This is going to bring down systemic inflammation, help to control the lipid profile, and reduce the stickiness of your red blood cells. Super important. Omega-3 you should be taking every day to help with your cardiovascular health, but especially take it during the fall and winter this year. You're going to need it because guess what? People are going to have problems with their clots. But if you don't want to pay attention, don't. I don't really care. Vitamin B complex, the first B vitamins 1 through 4 help with the electron transport chain to boost up your ATP levels. You need lots of ATP. You know the common theme about people that are getting older? Their mitochondria doesn't work and your ATP goes down. Boost your ATP up and you won't be so old. And vitamin B complex helps to rev up the metabolism. So your cells and your tissues and your organ systems are performing better. And B12 helps to protect neurons. This is super important to take, especially if you're 40 years of age, male or female. Start taking the vitamin B complex. Protect those neurons. You don't want to have early onset of dementia, trust me. Resveratrol. Resveratrol helps with youthful gene expression, helps the health of the mitochondria, helps to boost up energy levels, soaks up free radicals because it's an antioxidant, gets rid of cells that are in senescence, and guess what? This helps the basal layer for your skin. Please go to my store and get the resveratrol. Stack them together. For youthful gene expression, resveratrol to help protect your neurons and improve your energy levels and cellular metabolism, the vitamin B complex, and the omega-3 to help with your cardiovascular health. It's a super stack. So please go to my store, use discount 5, you get $5 off any order, and guess what? If you spend $100 or more, you get a free gift, which you're going to need for the fall and the winter.
New complication altogether. And you'll remember from Trump's first term, they really enjoyed this buddy-buddy relationship with the big Howdy Modi event that Trump attended in Texas during the first term. But the second term has been quite different. The president has been critical of India for its purchases of Russian oil that he sees as impeding his ability to get the ceasefire and peace deal in Ukraine that he's really been pushing for. And he's also had some misgivings over India refusing to embrace what Trump sees as his central role in brokering some sort of a cessation of hostilities between India and its longtime rival Pakistan. And so those tensions have been flaring up, and the president imposed 50% tariffs on Indian goods into the U.S. We saw perhaps a little bit of a detente with the president making a birthday call last week to Modi, but I don't think, and nobody would really characterize the $100,000 price tag on an H-1B visa as a birthday gift for the Indian leader.
Michael Shepard,
too bad,
covering the waterfront with us here. I'm glad you could do this, Shep. Many thanks. Bloomberg Senior Editor for Technology and Strategic Industries, getting us started on the Monday edition. As promised, an important conversation we want to bring you now to in New York. Bloomberg Soleil Mosen sitting down with the newest member of the Fed, Governor Stephen Myron. This is at the Economic Club of New York, a fireside chat live on Bloomberg.
That it wasn't bad. And so my initial thought was that I was going to be asked to run the Bureau of Labor Statistics as a second job. That's what I initially expected when I walked into the Oval Office that day. But yeah, that's not how it turned out.
Yeah, they couldn't find you. Personnel decision could be firing, or would you like to be a Fed governor?
Yes, so that's what it turned out to be, yeah.
Yeah. So you're on leave from working for President Trump, where in your job you provided economic analysis for the White House. Trump says, and the White House says, that the U.S. economy is doing great. They recently put a post up on the website that talks about how Americans are spending like never before. They are earning more, and the industrial renaissance is here. Yet, as a Fed governor last week, you wrote down a forecast for a total of 150 basis point cuts in 3 meetings, which is usually panic territory. How can both points be true at the same time? That the economy is doing great, but a rapid interest rate reduction is necessary?
Yeah, so look, I mean, as I said a few moments ago, I expect the second half of the year into next year to be better in terms of growth than the first half of this year. In large part because a lot of the effects of the tax bill are going to be kicking in, and trade uncertainty is dissipating. But I view a lot of that as also expanding the supply side at the same time as the demand side. And so, as I said, if actual output and potential output are moving at the same time, it doesn't imply necessarily hawkish or much higher policy, because the output cap isn't expanding if they're both moving at the same time. Instead, my view is that policy is roughly 2 points too restrictive, which is considerably restrictive.
I'm going to shift over to News Nation talking about Charlie Kirk's death is influencing Democrats. All right. But before we do that, please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the NAD+. NAD+ boosts up your NAD+ levels. That increases your energy. It also helps to repair your DNA damage and protect neurons. Super important. Ubiquinol, the most bioavailable form of CoQ10 that you can purchase. There's nothing better than what I have. Ubiquinol is an antioxidant. It's going to soak up free radicals. It's going to reduce stress in the cell. It's going to help your mitochondrial health. Your ATP is going to improve. So you're going to have more energy, and it protects neurons. So a neurostack to protect neurons, especially if you're age 40 or older, get the Ubiquinol and the NAD+. Get it today. so you don't get Swiss cheese brain. Okay? Protect those neurons.
Amazing. This is cool. This is so cool. We'll be tonight with Jack Sovic, Turning Point USA contributor, host of Human Events Daily. Tyler Boyer, Turning Point Action's Chief Operating Officer. Gentlemen, good to see you. To say this has been an awful week for you would be an understatement. So we appreciate you being here. I want to ask you how you're doing because I have another question. You can see it in your face. Tyler, you're now organizing the funeral for one of your dear friends. Among those speakers, the president, the vice president, the secretary of state, the list goes on and on. Did you understand during Charlie's life, did you know 2 weeks ago the kind of influence and effect he had, Turning Point USA had in American politics?
Yeah, I mean, we felt the influence for sure. I mean, everything that we've worked for and built, you said it best, that this is one of the largest political operations that the country's ever seen, certainly in modern American history. And so we felt that, and we knew what we were working towards and what kind of influence that Charlie Kirk had internally within the conservative movement. I think what's been a surprise is the externality of everything. How many foreign countries paid respects to Charlie? That's been a surprise, I think, for all of us. How this has impacted a lot of Democrats. I mean, you can see significant return from many Democrats saying, hey, I'm switching parties or I'm switching independent. I don't like what I'm seeing. And that, again, that speaks to Charlie. And as he said, he was a man who never went after people in a derogatory way.
No, I remember, that's what this show is tough interviews. Not tonight, but it normally is. And he was always willing to have a respectful conversation. And I think, and I hate to say this in this way, but he was so smart, he didn't have to call anybody names or argue. He could actually argue the facts with you and put you in a corner. Jack, you think about moments in American history, and you were intelligence officer in the military, and you think about moments of inflection. There is a George Floyd-like moment to what we're seeing here, that all of a sudden we didn't know anything was there, and then all of a sudden something happens in the country, something violent, and the whole country seems to change. Now, there have been no riots. That's a significant difference. There have been prayer groups in this case. Do we?
Let's dive in and let's call it for what it is. All right. I think it's a JFK moment or an RFK moment. I think there's a lot of similarities between JFK and RFK and the assassination and all this stuff. But let's just compare the individuals that reacted from Charlie Kirk's assassination and the death of George Floyd. Those differences. And use the lens of God, country, and family. In Charlie Kirk's case, with high affinity to God, all right, there's spirituality. It's all over there. I mean, it was during the funeral and even during his rhetoric when he was alive, there was a strong ethos of spirituality. So high marks with the pillar of God or spirituality. Now look at the individuals in the BLM movement that rioted for George Floyd. Do you see God in that? Do you see God in it? No. How could you have God in it when you actually destroy people's property? Or you steal? Isn't thou shalt not steal? I mean, isn't that one of the 10 Commandments? So individuals that were acting because of Floyd, George Floyd, especially in the context of the BLM, you can't say that they get high marks on the affinity towards the God pillar. Okay, now let's look at country. You looked at Charlie Kirk. His rhetoric on campus has been about America first, and during that funeral, what did you see? a respect of the American flag and the Constitution. Do you see respect of the American flag and the Constitution during the BLM riot because of George Floyd? They burned down the American flag. The BLM was embedded with these Palestinian riots in 2023 and in 2024. Even though George Floyd didn't, passed away before then. But they were burning the American flag and demonizing the country. So the point I'm making is the individuals that reacted to the George Floyd incident, primarily the BLM, they don't have high marks for country, affiliation to country at all. It's quite the opposite. They want to tear down the country. Now let's look at family, the family pillar. Charlie Kirk kept on saying that it's really important to have a family and, perpetuate the genes and instill good manners and ethics within your children. So very high marks on the pillar side of God, country, and family. Now let's look at BLM, pushing for abortion rights, destroying fetuses, promoting promiscuity and this, rapper mentality, the ghetto mentality. Is that family? Is that family related? We're the boys, right? These black males can't pull up their pants, brush their teeth, or make their bed. They'll knock up 6 women and, and then you get a bulletin, you get this billboard on the side of the road saying 1-800 who's your daddy for DNA testing. Is that family? So there's big difference between George Floyd and the ones that reacted to his death and the ones that are reacting to Charlie Kirk's death. And it's very clear it's God, country, and family in those pillars. When you don't have them, you have a society that devolves.
The assassination of Charlie Kirk means in the larger American political conversation?
I don't think we know yet, Leland. And when you look at one of these things, it's tempting to want to try to make pronouncements and predictions as to what's going to come next. But I don't think that anyone would have predicted, by the way, that 5 years or 4 years after George Floyd, that Donald Trump would be getting reelected as president, and
or 4 years after January 6th,
or all of the things that have gone on. And so it's tough to make those prognostications. But I would say I have a hope, and I would say my hope is that as horrific as this violence was and this just unspeakable evil, that just look behind us, right? This incredible vigil where people come together, it's peaceful, it's prayerful. People are, every church in this country and just here as well as Phoenix, but even back home, back east, people are saying the pews are packed like it was Easter Sunday. And I hope that, if anything, as Charlie would have wanted, that there's a positive response that comes out. People opening Bibles again, going to church again, even if they don't know what to do, you just go. And that it's a positive turn in our country towards an understanding.
It's interesting you say that, because I think there's a lot of Republicans now who feel a power that they didn't feel before, especially with what's happened with Jimmy Kimmel, especially how we've seen real change sort of in America in the past 10 days. But this from an AP poll, GOP thinks U.S. is heading in right direction. September 10th, it was 49%. So that's after the assassination. June 4th, it was 70%.
Wow. I haven't seen that.
How do we explain that?
Coming to the stage this Friday, it's Ned's first team karaoke night. But he's wondering,
what if my flaky red plastic?
How do we explain that?
Be interested what time of day that was taken, by the way, because obviously September 10th was the day Charlie was shot. So, you know, you could, assuming that it's taken that into account, you know, I think it's something where, look, Republicans had a huge victory. President Trump wins House, Senate, all the swing states. Outside of Trump himself, the only person that you could say who had the biggest influence on that was Charlie Kirk. And the work that he and Tyler with Turning Point Action did across the country. And so, you know, on the heels of such a big victory, you know, you're expecting and you're seeing, you know, lots of wins, things that conservatives have been fighting for so long. And then suddenly to have one of your leading voices, literal leading voice for youth and for so many people around the country, just so suddenly and viciously ripped out. It does feel kind of like the bottom just falls out.
Look, I said on air, I think on September 10th, I said there is no person in America more politically powerful than Charlie Kirk other than Donald Trump.
Right.
Was by far the most influential non-political leader we've seen in modern politics past 30, 40 years. Way more impactful than a Jerry Falwell or anybody like that. Tyler, what does this intersection that we've seen now about faith? Because I think so many people understood the Turning Point USA was about organizing the college campuses and organizing Republicans and in the youth in America. Did everyone understand how important the faith part of this was?
Yeah, I think the what people are realizing now is the undertone that Charlie Kirk produced was actually really the overtone. It was the leading factor. We talk all the time about the Charlie thought process, which is that politics is downstream from culture. Andrew Breitbart. He was a student of Andrew Breitbart. He loved Andrew Breitbart, and so I helped motivate him to get into politics. We talk about it all the time. But that's why he led so strongly with his faith.
Well, and we said it the other day, it's like, so Breitbart was politics is downstream from culture. If you add Charlie's piece, it's that culture is downstream from faith.
Okay. Excellent analysis. The part of this change, and we've seen this happen before in American politics, is this sort of this snap effect. And one of the snap effects has been whatever you want to call it, the suspension, the firing, the canceling of Jimmy Kimmel. And that has created I don't want to say schism, but it certainly created a split within the Republican Party. This was Ted Cruz talking about his view of what was happening. Take a listen.
What he said there is dangerous as hell. That's right out of a mafioso. It might feel good right now.
Ted Cruz in some of these pictures, he almost has, if he grew his beard a little bit more and trimmed it in a certain way, it almost looked like during the Civil War. All right. All right. Now, Ted Cruz is a smart guy. All right. I think he was first of his class in law school at Harvard Law. He's not a dumb guy. But what is really important here is to look at it from the context that, yes, the pendulum is swinging from ultra-liberal to conservative, to individuals that don't have an affinity to God and moving towards spirituality. But you got to remember that the Constitution is more important than Ted Cruz, Dr. Paul Cottrell, or even you. Nobody supersedes the Constitution. Nobody. Constitution is paramount. Most important thing. Your life is not as important as the Constitution, period. So with that as a law of truth, all right, then you have to start realizing that freedom of religion also means freedom from religion. And the problem that was happening, I think, during the funeral for Charlie Kirk was it was too proselytizing. All right. It should have been a little bit more, it should have been a little bit more let's call it more inclusive for all religions. I think it was proselytizing the Christian faith. That is not what America is about. It's freedom of religion and from religion. Implicitly, it's from religion also. That's an important statement. So why do I say this? Sometimes when the pendulum swings, people think that their faith is the most important and that all others are subservient. That's not what our Constitution says. And when you are trying to curtail hate speech or the signaling of the mainstream media and how it's affecting the youth, and you're using the FCC to try to do that, that's a pendulum that's swinging too far. And you aren't following freedom of speech. All right. Same thing with the LGBTQ community. All right. Should an individual be prevented from being, I don't know, president of the United States or a president of a university because of their sexuality? No, of course not. They should, if they meet the merits of that position, if they qualify for that position, independent of their sexuality, they should get it. The problem is that the LGBT community has pushed it so far that they're demanding to be not just included, but to be super included. And you're seeing this during the Pride Month in New York. And it gets worse and worse and worse in this whole sexualization of children. There's this topic that I'm talking about is pretty deep here. But the point is that there's always a group that overshoots their position. Elton John said this perfectly. And he said that gay rights have gained in the United States, but he was worried that gay rights would actually start hurting themselves because they're pushing too far into mainstream. And so this is the point that I'm making with religion. Yes, we need more religion in the country. We need more affinity to God or some spirituality to give us that foundation of morality, and especially at the children level. And when they grow up and become adults, they have a better foundation to perpetuate a peaceful and productive society, law-abiding society. But when you proselytize a particular religion, no matter what the religion is, it's going against the grain of the Constitution. And this is what Cruz is saying about the FCC. They're overshooting. It's not in the context of religion, but it's in the context of freedom of speech. So all of these freedoms that we have, if you overshoot, it can cause problems. And I think that the individuals that were mourning Charlie Kirk's death, especially the evangelical Christian, needs to keep this in mind, that the reason why you lost parishioners over decades since the 1950s is because of the overshoot of the evangelical rhetoric. Our Constitution, freedom of religion and from religion, implicit. Very important. Now, if you tell that to a true believer in the Christian faith, they're going to think that you're a heretic. But like I said, the religion, no matter what religion it is, Judaism, Islam, Christianity, Buddhism, I don't care. There is nothing that supersedes the Constitution. Why? Because the Constitution is designed where everyone's equal.
threaten Jimmy Kimmel. But when it is used to silence every conservative in America, we will regret it.
Yeah, it's the point I'm making.
Is there a concern or a thought that Republicans are angry, understandably, hurt, understandably, and maybe doing things in that vein that later will turn out to be regretful?
They're overshooting.
You know, I think in this situation, you know, I've also seen in the Wall Street Journal and Hollywood Reporter.
I'm willing to bet.
Really
I'm willing to bet that Jack Posobiec is not going to see the depthness of what Ted Cruz is saying and how it's applied to the overshoot of evangelical Christianity. You got to remember, there was a reason why people moved away from the religion. And if you can't really seriously answer that question, then you're not paying attention to the actual pendulum swings between conservatism and liberalism.
Backlash from the local affiliates. So I think there's a lot going on here. And at the same time, I totally get what people are saying. Look, power. And do so in a correct manner. You need to do so with that understanding of what the after effects are going to be. You have to understand what's the right call, what's the wrong call, what follow-on effects are going to have. But at the same time, you know, just in this example, I hear this a lot of times from conservatives who say, well, what if the left were to cancel, conservatives? What if the left were to do that? And they've been doing that for decades.
Right? They've been doing it for decades. The argument is it was wrong then. And it was something that Charlie spoke out against in this sense.
But there's a massive difference here, which is there's an expectation that those that are sitting within positions of authority, both in private corporations and then also that are called and assigned to governmental positions, also are caretakers of those specific entities. And so, you know, for us, the left was attacking the individual. The left was trying to take out people like Charlie Kirk, was trying to sideline Charlie Kirk.
Demonize him by name.
Charlie, as you pointed out, never demonized anyone.
Agreed.
And you still have these people doing it. I mean, even after the fact, the whole purpose that Jimmy Kimmel was trying to evoke on his show was to continue to demonize conservatives who have just been murdered. And so
to blame conservatives.
So the thing is Jimmy Kimmel is, on a main network, TV network, ABC, I think that is. Well, Bannon, who's not on a mainstream TV network, also demonizes the other side. So there's a demonization that's taking place by both sides. It's very polarized. The United States is very polarized. But the thing is that his ratings were going down because people were tired of the demonization. Even if you didn't like Trump or Trump supporters, if you kept on hearing negativity from someone like a comedian, like Jimmy Kimmel, it's no surprise that his ratings were falling. But it goes even farther. These liberals have been activated that are part of this whole media structure and social media structure to program the society. There is a domestic propaganda that's taking place. And Jimmy Kimmel was part of it. And he made millions of dollars doing it. See, what is Jimmy Kimmel really more mad about? That he's going to be losing millions of dollars? Or that it's freedom that he thinks is that FCC is going after him and it's curtailing his freedom of speech. Meanwhile, his ratings were going down. What does he really care about? I guarantee you it's about the money. It's always about the
money. Blame conservatives, but also put a target on conservatives and continue that narrative to do what? But to actually sideline those people from conversations, to set them aside. So I think it's really important for people to stand up and say, no, that's wrong. Many Democrats did that, and many people that hold positions of authority
that are not our friends were the ones that spoke up.
Yeah, Barack Obama, arguably the leader of the Democrat Party, and he brings up Charlie's name the other day, and he's talking about my friend who just got killed. And the very next breath, he's criticizing him and demonizing why do you have to do that?
But Barack Obama was the Manchurian candidate. He wasn't the first black. We never had the first black president yet. We had the first mulatto president, not black. And then on top of that, what was the ethos of Barack Obama? I'm listening to his actual memoirs on audiobook. About 5 hours into a 30-hour book. And he just was elected. All right, so that's where I'm at in the book. The boy, Barack Obama, is a smooth talker. He's a smooth talker, but he's a Marxist. He's a Marxist. He came from Marxism. He believes in Marxism. And look at how angry he was during the 2024 election near the end, when Harris was plummeting, was self-destructing, and Trump was surging. You notice how angry he was during those stump speeches? Was that presidential? You ever see Jimmy Carter do that? You see George Bush Sr. ever do that? Or George Bush Jr.? Or even Bill Clinton? So why is it so charged with Barack Obama? Because that's how Marxists talk. That's how Marxists act.
So well, we're gonna get into that with the next segment because we have a Democrat coming up to ask that question too. It's good to see you, fellas. It's rare that you have to say this on TV individually to people who you know, but I know your guys' heart is hurting for a friend, and what you guys have done over the past week, 10 days, to honor him and continue his legacy and fight in the way he did has been extraordinarily impressive. So for that, thanks very much. Godspeed.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our News Nation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.
People who pick post-university choose our 100% online Master of Education program. All
right, so we're going to go to Bloomberg, but please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get this stack that is the foundation for the anti-aging protocol. The complete multivitamin has the multivitamins as cofactors for proper enzymatic activity, so your cells perform properly. Super important, and it is easy to digest. I have probiotics either in the powdered version or in the veggie cap version. The veggie cap version is the one that I have in my hand. Take a probiotic every day, and that's going to help with your gut biome. You're going to be able to absorb your nutrients better. You're going to improve your immune system at the gut level. You're going to improve your metabolism. You're going to improve the communication between your gut and your liver and your gut and your brain. You'll be able to sleep better. You're going to get rid of brain fog. And by sleeping better, you're detoxifying your central nervous system, you're consolidating memory, and you're going to be well rested. And you'll notice that over time, your skin improves, your concentration improves. So you get lots of positive benefits by just improving your gut biome. So the foundation for the anti-aging protocol is to get the probiotic and to take it with the complete multivitamin. Do that every day, and you build off of it. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Use discount 5 and you get $5 off any order. It's really important. If you improve your bodily systems and slow down the aging process, your immune system is going to be stronger. And guess what? You need a strong immune system for the fall and the winter. All right? Are you catching my drift here? Are you catching what I'm saying? Be prepared for the fall and the winter.
19 and 1 vote out of 12
And if he is only there until the end of January or a little bit after, it isn't going to really matter what he says. And it's probably not going to be easy for him to convince anyone else that's already on the Open Market Committee to go along with his views.
Yeah, he kind of brushed off the question about the Mar-a-Lago Accords when Saleha asked him, was that to be expected?
That was interesting because he said, I was quoting somebody else. It wasn't my idea, but it is a whole paper basically on that idea. So that he published. So even if he was quoting somebody else, it does appear to be his work, and it is where this whole thing generated from.
I'm looking at the headlines from the interview on the terminal as I speak to you, Mike. A series of 50 basis point cuts will recalibrate policy. What's a series? 1, 2, 3?
Well, he's looking at the 4.5 for between now and the end of the year, or something bigger, because he forecast 125 basis points worth of cuts. So that's a significant amount of well, it'd be 2.5 50 basis point moves. And then after that, more.
Steve Moore, I think, is on Fox Business. We're gonna play Steve Moore. I probably disagree with him. All right, and I'll explain why. But let's play it right now. He's an economist.
Monday morning, a little green a little red on your screen, but not that much. Dow's off 190. Small loss for the S&P and for the Nasdaq. That's how we might open. No idea how we close. Oh, look at gold. A record high, $3,754 an ounce, up almost $50 today. Now this, President Trump announced a change to the immigration system. Companies applying for new H-1B visas for foreign workers are now required to pay a one-time $100,000 fee.
I think that's a good idea.
New workers, not those already here with an H-1B visa. Steve Moore joins us. 2 questions, Steve. Number 1, does this create opportunity for native-born Americans? And
Yes.
Number 2, do we have the technology skills that we require?
Yes.
Well, let me answer that second question first.
Now you got to remember, he's a fucking economist. He's a fucking economist. And I was a professional engineer in automotive, so I should know better than that fucking economist.
One of the great comparative advantages of the United States over virtually every country in the world, and we have completely, as you know, sir, the United States has completely dominated the internet age. You know, we're the ones with the $1 trillion companies. And it's in part, and not even a small part, but the fact that we are attracting the best and the brightest people from all over the world to places like Silicon Valley and Austin, Texas, and Boston, Massachusetts. So my response to I think it's a bad idea on the H-1Bs. We need more of them, not fewer of them.
Wrong. We have students coming out of engineering school, and instead of going into engineering, they're going into finance. But if there are lots of great opportunities for them in their engineering discipline, they'll go into those fields. So he's wrong on that. He's wrong. He's just flat out wrong. Now, you also notice he was only focused on tech. He didn't understand about chemical engineering, petroleum engineering, electrical engineering, nuclear engineering, mechanical engineering. See, there's a lot more types of engineers. Steve Moore, wake up. Wake up.
The H-1B computer nerds and what our buddy Larry Cottrell calls the brainiacs, they are complementary to American workers, not substitutes. So in other words, the more H-1B visas we have.
No. What happened? Why is India so pissed off? Because Tata is a major outsource company. And they make a ton of money because of the labor arbitrage. And what they do is they get a contract within a company, let's say Oracle or Ford Motor Company, or Dow Chemical, whatever it is, and instead of hiring an American engineer at 120, they would hire 2 or 3 or 4 Indian engineers and play the labor arbitrage and also get technology transfer. I saw this happen in 2000 to 2005 in Detroit, in automotive. He's just flat out wrong. He's just flat out wrong. And the reason why, what's the golden reason why it's at $100,000? because what that does is it neutralizes. What's the whole point of the tariffs? To neutralize, to prevent the arbitrage. And this H-1B visa, boom, it neutralizes the arbitrage. And that's why India is so pissed off. No, if Indian engineers were so great, why don't they make their own fucking country greater? Because they can't. They can't. It's still a shithole. It's still lots of poverty. Do you want to live in India? It's a shithole. No, they'll come over here and play the labor arbitrage. And then what's strange about this, because the cost of living is so actually lower over there than here, they can live like kings. So what was happening is the engineers that were coming from India on the H-1B visa in automotive was sending the money that they were making home, and they were building 7,000 to 8,000 square foot homes in India. They were living like kings after they go back. Really? Really, Steve Moore? You really think that's... See, this is the problem when you're only an economist and hasn't really done anything in the real world.
The more jobs we create in the United States. And let me mention one other quick thing. Did you know, Stuart, that 3 of our magnificent 7 companies, Microsoft, Google, and I'm trying to remember the other one. Tesla. All 3 of those the CEOs came in on an H-1B visa. So think about how many hundreds and hundreds of thousands of jobs.
Steve Moore, I know you're an economist and you take data, but there is something called survivor bias. All right? The far majority of the H-1B visa holders aren't Elon Musk. Because if that was the case, then the far majority of the H-1B visa holders would have been multi-billionaires. And they have spaceships. The last time I looked, that isn't in existence. So don't use survivor bias as a general statement.
By people like Elon Musk.
So why do you think the president is doing this? Is it perhaps to make some money? He's a transactional kind of guy.
It's to neutralize the labor arbitrage and to stop the technology transfer, and also to get back at India for them helping Russia because they're buying the oil. And not only that, they're also processing some of the oil. And then selling it back. But the point I'm making here is that there's a sweet spot. What's that sweet spot to neutralize? Boom, $100,000. That's why he did it. Because they bring in 4 engineers or 3 engineers for every one in the United States. Come on, Steve.
Charging, a fee to come in the United States. I mean, maybe an auction system might make a lot of sense. And we could raise some money from that. But
that ain't
by the way, there was as you know, Stuart, there was a parallel proposal by Trump that was announced this week.
This 100,000 H-1B is a geopolitical strategic initiative to push India back into the corner and stop supporting Russia. But it's also to neutralize the labor arbitrage that's been going on for the last 25 years. But there's most people aren't engineers, so they don't understand this. Most people haven't worked in engineering, so they don't know this is happening. But it is. Oh, by the way, if you paid attention to the .com bubble and the aftershock of that after 2 or 3 years, what were many of the coders saying after that .com bubble in Silicon Valley? They were saying they were having a hard time finding jobs, and that the jobs were being taken by foreign holders. Why? Because they were cheaper. When there's economic downturn, the companies try to find ways to save money. They shed their workers and they find cheaper workers. And the cheapest workers they could find were from Tata.
like a lot, which are these golden visas or Trump visas, which I believe, I don't know the exact details, but you pay $1 million, you get a visa, you agree to come to the United States, start a business, employ a certain number of Americans. That's a great idea. Let's have a lot of those people coming in. They're going to actually create potentially hundreds and hundreds of thousands of jobs.
How about looking in your own backyard, Steve? Your own backyard, and grow engineers in our country, our citizens going to school, support them, and get them into industry. And so they're productive. So our society is productive. Why are we supporting the Indians? Why? Why? Why?
Say so, Mr. President, I like that idea. I'm not wild about charging people more for the H-1B visas.
Okay, yeah. President Trump wants the
Steve
world
Moore's wrong.
to fund
Just fucking
more
flat out wrong.
fossil fuel projects. It's his latest push against the green agenda. Steve, Trump has killed the Green New Deal here. Is he trying to kill it on a global scale now?
Hopefully he does.
Well, it's killing itself because it just turns out wind and solar are very fringe forms of energy, niche forms. They can never provide the power we need to for the internet, for the AI.
So Steve Moore is against the green energy. I'm against green energy. It doesn't have the power density. Not only that, a lot of these lithium batteries are terrible for the environment, especially when you're mining it. You ever realize that these mines use a lot of wastewater and there's a lot of runoff? Believe me, there's a lot more environmental degradation of getting lithium out of the ground than oil. And that's inefficient. And then he also is like, well, wait a minute here. We also have to bring in, engineers on these, cheaper visa programs. Well, if they're so good, why is it that they need 3 for every 1 engineer in America? Because they don't have the knowledge. That's why. So he's for one program that's inefficient. 3-to-1 ratio, that's inefficient. And then he's also saying he doesn't like green energy because it's inefficient. Well, you can't have your cake and eat it too. You can't use your energy and still have it, Steve. Which is it about efficiency or not? If it's about efficiency, then you shouldn't be having the H-1B visa holders. Because the American engineer can do more. 1 engineer compared to 1 engineer in India, the American engineer can do more. But they're cheaper. The Indian engineer's cheaper. And so if you are helping India out, how is that helping the tax revenue in this country? How is that helping with family creation in this country? How does it help building and homes and buying existing home stock in this country? Steve, the economist that never built him.
For robotics, which are going to create, require about 3 times more power than we have today. So fossil fuels, oil, gas, and coal, and nuclear power will continue to be by far the dominant forms of energy for at least the next 50 to 100 years. And there's been huge amounts of waste by the World Bank in investing in.
So if the efficiency ratio is so important to pay attention to for energy creation, why isn't the efficiency ratio as important with the H-1B holders? Steve, you can't play the fence on this. One American engineer can outproduce one Indian engineer, but the Indian engineer is cheaper because they're coming from a country that's a shithole.
From wind, which is still, we only get about 4 or 5% of our energy after spending hundreds of billions on this. So Trump is exactly right about this. We need to be energy dominant, and other countries, when the World Bank is going into these poor countries and telling them, oh, don't.
Why shouldn't we be engineering dominant too, Steve? Don't you think that they work together? Energy dominance and engineering dominance? Oh, I'm sorry, you're an economist. Not an engineer. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Steve. You're an economist. You're special. You're one of those special gifted kids. All right. Okay. All right.
Use natural gas, use windmills. They're keeping these countries poor. It's exactly the opposite of what the World Bank is supposed to be doing.
It occurs to me that nuclear power is the go-to power source at this moment because there are, I believe that it's about 120 of these small nuclear reactors that are already in use on American Navy ships all around the world. Is that the way to go?
I call it the two ends, nuclear and natural gas. And I would say by far the most important fuel of the future is natural gas because it's abundant, it's made in America, and it's really, really cheap. But nuclear power, sure. I mean, right now we get maybe 8 to 10% of our 10%.
Natural gas is way more, way better, way better. We have an amazing amount of it. Nuclear is dangerous. It's dangerous. If something happens, it's catastrophic and you can't fix it. Not only that, even if nothing happens with that plant during the whole life cycle, you still have radioactive material that you got to deal with. Not just the fuel rods that could be recycled, but the gloves and the helmets and the boots and all of the wrenches and everything that is radiated has to go into a waste dump. Everything. And it stays radioactive for 10,000 years. So maybe instead of Steve learning economics, maybe he should have learned a little bit more physics. But then he could have been an engineer. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the Max 35 or the Cleanse. The Cleanse is 35 parts per million. The Max 35 is 35 parts per million. Take a teaspoon a day, swish it in your mouth, gargle about 20, 30 seconds, and swallow it. That will help to boost up your immune system. It helps the health of your mind. It'll help the health of your oral cavity and your oral pharynx, the health of your mucosal lining. The mucosal lining will increase, and it'll improve the health of the epithelial tissue. When you do that, you're boosting up that immune system. Super important, super important. If you're not feeling well or someone around you is not feeling well, especially during the fall and the winter, take a tablespoon or two a day. Let me repeat myself, especially in the fall and the winter, take a tablespoon or two a day. And once everything is fine, go back to your maintenance dose. I've been doing this protocol for over 5 years. Boost up that immune system. It's the first pillar of my anti-aging protocol. You have that foundation, which is the multivitamin and the probiotic. And the first pillar to boost up that immune system is taking the Max 35 or the Cleanse. But you're going to need this for the fall and the winter. Be prepared. Be prepared. Because guess what? Something bad's coming. Something bad is coming and nobody's paying attention.
White House press briefing that's underway right now. Caroline Leavitt, the press secretary, telling reporters that President Trump will speak on the childhood autism epidemic, something that he previewed in his speech at the Charlie Kirk Memorial yesterday in Arizona. Leavitt says Trump will give a quote major speech tomorrow morning. Unclear then if we're going to have an announcement as expected this afternoon on childhood autism. We'll keep you posted on this. We'll assemble
I thought that was today, but all right, tomorrow, thanks. Let's listen into. Want to listen into CNN here.
You belong on the water. Water brings solitude. Water brings clarity.
It's bigger than just catching the fish.
We begin with French President Emmanuel Macron at the United Nations General Assembly this afternoon. He is expected to formally recognize a Palestinian state, and it comes just a day after the United Kingdom, Australia, Canada, and Portugal all came out in favor of Palestinian independence.
Also this morning, we have this new video out of London. A special ceremony marks the raising of the Palestinian flag at the Palestinian mission to the UK. Also new this morning, tens of thousands of protesters in Italy calling for a nationwide strike to support Palestinians in Gaza. They are also demanding that their government join other Western nations to recognize a Palestinian state. Let's get some analysis right now. Joining us now, Axios politics and foreign policy reporter Barak Ravid. He's also a CNN political and global affairs analyst. Barak, there's a lot of international momentum right now towards the recognition of a new Palestinian state. How is Israel, first of all, responding to this?
Hi, Wolf. I think Benjamin Netanyahu finds himself almost 2 years after October 7th, this horrible, horrific terrorist attack, more isolated than ever. And with Netanyahu, the entire country is more isolated than ever. And I think this is what we're going to see in the next few days in the UN General Assembly. You know, Netanyahu published his schedule for the UN General Assembly, and no offense to anybody, but his bilateral meetings are with the leaders of Serbia, Argentina, and Paraguay. I covered a lot of his trips in the past. His itinerary looked very different in the past, with many more leaders from more prominent countries. And I think it tells you a lot about where Israel is today.
It certainly does. How much concern is there, Barak, in Israel that the country is being increasingly isolated out there on the international stage?
I think there's a lot of concern. Netanyahu himself said it publicly. He said that Israel is undergoing isolation. He even said that Israel should be like Sparta. He called it Super Sparta, something that got the stock market in Tel Aviv to crash. And so I think a lot of people feel that way. I think Netanyahu is totally aware of the situation. But at the same time, one of the things that he's considering at the moment, in retaliation to those recognitions of Palestine, is to not take a step back, but to double down by annexing parts of the West Bank, something that will only increase the international pressure and criticism on Israel. Even the Trump administration is telling Netanyahu that this would be one step too far and is urging him not to do it.
How much pressure is Netanyahu under right now to take steps to free the remaining Israeli hostages in Gaza as the IDF, the Israel Defense Forces, ramps up its military campaign in Gaza, especially Gaza City?
Well, there's only one person Benjamin Netanyahu cares about, and this is President Trump. The domestic pressure, the demonstrations, the tens of thousands of Israelis that are going to the streets to call for an end to the war and the release of the hostages, all of those, Netanyahu doesn't care about that. He cares about one person, this is Donald Trump. And the interesting thing is that Donald Trump tomorrow is going to meet with the leaders of 6 Arab and Muslim countries and present to them, maybe for the first time since he's president, his ideas and his principles for ending the war in Gaza. And I think this could be a very meaningful meeting, especially that next Monday, Netanyahu himself will arrive in the Oval Office for his 4th meeting with Donald Trump since January. And he will also be presented with those principles and ideas. So I think that Donald Trump, you see, while publicly he's giving support to Netanyahu, I think what he's doing is try to find a way to end the war as soon as possible.
All right, Barak Ravid, thank you very, very much.
Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get this stack. This stack is dual purpose. Taking vitamin D3 and stacking with vitamin K2 and doing resistance training is going to allow you to build bone density. But it will also help to pull some of that calcium depositing around plaque and reduce plaque formation. Super important. Vitamin D3 and K2 also will help you to weather the storm in the fall and the winter. All right, vitamin D3 helps to get cells to go into apoptosis if they're infected. And K2 reduces the severity. It's really important. Let me repeat. It is very, very, very important that you take this. But if you don't want to listen, don't listen. I have deodorant bars that are dual purpose. Help to detoxify your body, and you use it as a daily deodorant. It is made from essential oils from the Himalayas, very high quality ingredients, no aluminum, no baking soda, all natural ingredients, essential oils from the Himalayas. Now, you can get it in peppermint, lavender, and tea tree, and also in citrus. Now, these deodorants are for males and females. You use it every day, and again, it helps to detoxify your body. Super important. And another item that you need for the fall and the winter is the gel. Take the gel, make sure you have some at work and at home, super important. Now, it's dual purpose. You can use it as a aftershave to soothe the skin after you shave. You can use it as a daily skincare. If you're cut, if you have an abrasion or a minor burn, you can put it on the wound and it'll help to heal it quicker because it keeps the wound clean. If you're not feeling well or someone around you is not feeling well, put it on your hands, around your eyes, around your nose, around your ears, around your mouth, lightly coat your nostrils, and it'll stay active for 5.5 hours. Very important. Make sure you have this for the fall and the winter. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Use discount 5. You get $5 off any order. If you spend $100 or more, you will get a free gift until supplies last. And you will need that free gift for the fall and winter. I guarantee it.
If your pet goes from weird to weirder, woolly to...
So every morning I get newspapers delivered to my house on Long Island. The papers, the actual, I can hold it. I like that. I also get them on the social media, the email, all of that. But I'd rather read the paper. It's just old time habit, traditional guy, whatever. So there's an ad in the New York Post, and it says move to Connecticut, and it's got a picture of a real estate group in Fairfield County, and there's no surprise about this ad. Mandan. There will be many people moving all over the place. And I'll get to Connecticut specifically in a moment because I did live there. But I want to give you some stats. Since Governor Hochul took office, 2021 to 24, 677,000 people have left New York City. 677,000 people have moved out of New York City. And New York State, since Hochul's been governor, 1.3 million New Yorkers have left. Now, of course, they're being replaced by a variety of people, not 100%. We've lost congressional representation in the state, and our population is shrinking. Those are enormous numbers. Enormous. So what's happening now, and I know this because I live on Long Island in a fairly affluent area, easy into the city on the railroad, is that the property values are going up, particularly in easy access in. And they're going up a lot because city people are going, I'm not even gonna chance it. Madani is so dangerous to the economy, to personal wealth, to public safety. I want out of here.
Yep.
50 families. Because you're not gonna believe the horror that's gonna descend on New York City if that man gets elected. It's gonna be dangerous. So people are moving away, and then the real estate agents, it's all supply and demand, right? So in my neighborhood, about 20% houses have gone up this year. These are nice houses, affluent neighborhoods, as I said, but there's a flight. Cold and flu season coming on up, we all know it. And it really is nothing to take lightly. So when people start getting very smart, have a pharmacy, you can, now they're helping Americans get ahead of it. With 10% off, particularly when your kids get sick. If you have a few months supply, taking care of your family, as I do.
It would be lovely if you'd stop fucking
built
this advertising.
into this. So people want to keep their job in Manhattan, you go up to Fairfield County or Greenwich or any of those towns. They call them the Southern Shore towns in Connecticut. You can get into the city on the train fairly easily. It's never, it's always a little annoying, but you can get it. But Connecticut, if you're going there because you fear taxes, Connecticut is taxing you to death. And there's no real reason why. It doesn't have a big metro center, Hartford, New Haven, the biggest towns. But the liberal governance up there is crazy. It's giveaway, 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 giveaway. So they have to raise the taxes. Property taxes are high, sales taxes are high, everything's high. If you're looking for low tax, you got to go to the Carolinas, Florida, Texas, Tennessee.
Right.
Can't go north, except New Hampshire.
Right.
New Hampshire is low tax state, but you're going to freeze your buns off up there, and you can't commute to New York. But anyway, these Connecticut people are smart because there will be a segment of New Yorkers go and they commute by car on Long Island is impossible. It's impossible. I live 22 miles from Midtown Manhattan. It'd be an hour and a half, easy. And it's not just rush hour either, 24/7. Connecticut is lighter. Still, the Stamford area is still a killer. But it's a lighter traffic footprint than Long Island. And Connecticut's a beautiful state. I mean, that southern shoreline is gorgeous. A very nice place to live. But you better have some loot. The real estate is top. But anyway, it's shocking how many New Yorkers are leaving, and that is going to accelerate if Donnie becomes mayor. And it's going to accelerate big time. And all of that will have negative consequences on those of us who have to live here. And I have to live here because of family, because of business, et cetera, et cetera. But I want to live here too. I'm not in New York.
Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the lignans. Lignans will help with your immune system, your endocrine system, help to soak up free radicals and bring down inflammation. That's going to help your immune system and your cardiovascular system. Ashwagandha root brings down cortisol levels and helps you to control your blood glucose levels. Super important for your cardiovascular system and your immune system. And turmeric brings down free radicals and also brings down pro-inflammatory cytokines. By stacking these together, you're improving your cardiovascular health, your immune system. And when you're bringing down inflammation and soaking up free radicals, you're even improving your neurons. And didn't I say that a lot of people are going to be getting early onset of dementia within the next 5 years? So maybe you should be paying attention and getting the turmeric, the ashwagandha, and the lignans, and take it every day. Boost up that immune system. You're going to need this for the fall and the winter, but not just that. It is the third pillar of my core protocol. Remember, the protocol is taking the multivitamin and the probiotic as the foundation. Max 35 or cleanse, it's the first pillar to help boost up that immune system. C60 to soak up free radicals is the second pillar. Third pillar is the turmeric, ashwagandha, and lignans to boost up that immune system and help with your cardiovascular system. And Boomer Boost revs up that metabolism and increases your energy levels. All right, let's go to Bloomberg.
Democracy visiting fellow at Harvard Kennedy School's Ash Center. Great to see you both here. Rick, you're no stranger to the business world. Is this true that companies at $100,000 a pop will be very happy to pay if it means getting the actual manpower that they need to conduct these projects, whether it's data centers or anything else?
Nope, they're going to hire American engineers.
From is there's going to be a load of new H-1B visas that are issued for this kind of tariff. And if that's the case, that does satisfy a lot of the concerns that the tech community has had with being able to get qualified workers to come in and work in their systems here in the United States. There have been a lot of limitations put on this program over the years that has stifled growth of these companies. And I would say, I don't think it's ever slowed down the recruitment of domestic tech workers. That's been at a premium for a long time. Universities have had to open up new schools to just supply the amount of capability that these companies need, and they still don't have enough. So when you have an engine that is a major part of global growth and certainly a significant part of the growth in the US, you want to feed it. And if it costs you $100,000 to get what you want, my guess is a lot of these companies will take whatever they can get to be able to get new H-1 visas issued.
I had a feeling you might say that, and I don't know, they may not be happy to shell out the money, as the president said, but Jeannie, high tech is one thing. Farming, for instance, might be a different. Healthcare is another. The president says there'll be a carve out for doctors. Is there some good being done here, and that it does unlock additional H-1Bs that would not otherwise be available?
Yeah, I think this is a gray area because we have long known that the visa process is broken. Everybody agrees with that. And the president is right to look at reform. But there's a difference between taking a hammer and taking a scalpel. And what they've done is taking a hammer. And we saw that over the weekend. We had people on planes who were turned around and came back because they were worried about leaving the country and getting in. And then the administration came out and explained this only applies to new visas. So there's a problem of execution, but there's also long-term impacts on the US. And just one, you and Mike Shepard have been talking all day today about TikTok. TikTok has been one of the greatest successes in terms of soft power that we've ever seen, and it is at the hands of China. That power matters to our future economically, militarily, economically. And so if you don't
She said
reform
economically
the system,
twice.
if you simply break it and you impact the ability of skilled laborers to get into this country, we are in the danger as a country of losing when it comes to our power base. And so all of these things are critically important. So I think what we have here is important to reform, but that problem of execution is one we've seen over and over again with this administration.
Well, Jeannie went there to TikTok, Rick, so I'm going to ask you about it as somebody who puts deals together every day at Stoneport Capital, what you're thinking about what we're hearing so far. And I realize some of these things could change and we do not have an actual deal on paper yet, but we're talking about no golden share, yet 6 of 7 board seats, and a plan here to license the algorithm that would be controlled by Oracle. Does this sound like we're getting off to the right start here? And by the way, this has followed a series of delays and a law that we're ignoring at the moment. Rick, does this sound like a good deal in the works for the United States?
Yeah, I think it delves in the details on this. I mean, everybody knew Oracle would be the center of it, as mentioned earlier on the program by Mike. It's the cloud computing center. They've offered to host it in the past. You knew that the synergies with them would be significant enough, especially their cybersecurity capability to try and keep the Chinese out of the back door. I would say, worries about a 7th board member appointed by anybody in China or reporting back to anybody in China. If this was a defense company, they wouldn't allow that to happen. Any other kind of strategic companies can't have that. Why would we let TikTok have it? So I guess there are going to be some things that, we'll have to chop some wood to get to the bottom of, but the fact that it gets it out of the control and the hands of a bunch of people who have been helping to destroy our society with all the malicious activity done through TikTok. I'm not saying it's the only thing that TikTok does, but it has certainly added to the divides within our country.
and hopefully that algorithm can be tweaked to take some of the heat off of the propaganda from China into the US.
Yeah, boy, it's amazing. Jeannie, remember Block the Talk? This was the most bipartisan affair in Washington. It was hating on this thing. It was a national security concern, and we were going to shut it down. Things have evolved remarkably since then. I guess my question is, what happens to the Republican and, for that matter, Democratic lawmakers who are screaming about national security enough to pass a law, and how long it'll take them to catch up with President Trump on this?
Yeah, how things change when something helps you win an election. And of course, both Trump and Biden used it in 24.
Right.
You know, I think that we've seen that the Congress has been willing on the Republican side to bend to Donald Trump's will. I think we will likely see that again, but I think the devil's really in the details. What does this agreement look like when they see it? Because the national security component is critically important. And, you know, I think it's really critical to say that again, on this H1, this visa issue, this H1B visa issue, look at China's response to it. China not only sent a fairly cool response to it, and, you know, similar to other countries that use it a lot, like India, but they also have responded with these K visas, right? So whereas the United States is closing the door on potentially critically important skilled workers, China is opening it. And I think this is what we mean about long-term impact. They now are in a position to sell us potentially this algorithm from TikTok. They are now welcoming young, skilled talent. This has long been where the United States has strived and excelled. We have been the envy of the world. And that's why, yes, reform the visa system, but do not do it so that you diminish our ability to compete long term. That's the concern on all of these fronts.
Of course, you know, Rick.
You know, the problem with these talking heads is, one, they never were engineers, either in real engineering or even software engineering. And I don't even think software engineering is real engineering. But the thing is that, okay, you have individuals that are speaking things that they've never done before. That's number one issue. All right. Kevin O'Leary was one of the individuals that was bidding for TikTok. And he stated on Fox News, Fox Business, that the TikTok algorithm is not that hard. But because they've accreted so many users that they already have a large following, and that they already have lots of businesses that are using it to promote their companies, your small businesses. But the concept of a 20-second video and creating a social platform, just about almost every single coding graduate can do. So the technological feat to do it is not that great. The problem is getting the accretion of users. And that's why Blue Sky isn't that big. Why? Because that was a spin-off of Twitter when Elon Musk bought it. So first mover advantage is really important with some of these social media companies. So it's not the technology, it's the marketing. So what the fuck are they talking about? That we need all these like really important people coming from other regions of the world to build our tech, to be our engineers? I don't believe the story. I don't believe the story.
States giving up to get this deal because the power is unfortunately in China's hands. You know, what are they getting out of this? The reality is they have what we want. Donald Trump is famous for going around the world.
They have what we want. Why? Because they were first mover on this type of social media platform and was successful, and it created a lot of users. But the technological feat to do that most graduates in computer coding could do. And Kevin O'Leary said, it's not the algorithm that's really that big of a deal, because that could be redone. That could be homegrown. It's the users. It's the adopters of the platform that's the issue. Do you think it's really that hard technologically to make a competitor to Walmart? No. Or Amazon? No. It's not technologically hard. But because they are created so many users and it built up such a large platform around the country that the barriers of entry are high. And it's a big marketing call to do it, to be able to get your customers and to be loyal and then build the brand. That's the hard part. But the cybernetics of Amazon, not so hard. Making ebooks, not so hard.
Great, hasn't it? Indeed, higher across the board, not just higher. Looking at records, Dow, S&P, NASDAQ, all pushing higher right now. Right for the numbers with the S&P up 28. That is a gain there of 0.4%. 27 records this year on the S&P. We're looking at the Dow up 103, up 0.2%. Again, S&P up 0.4. NASDAQ Composite Index up by 0.6%. 10-year 4.13%. The 2-year currently yielding 3.58%. Spot gold up $60 the ounce. Looking at a record there as well, 37.45, up 1.6%. West Texas Intermediate.
Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the C60. You can get it in extra virgin olive oil, avocado oil, and MCT coconut oil. C60 is an antioxidant, very potent. It's 1,000 times stronger than vitamin C. It'll soak up free radicals, bring down stress in the cell and in your tissues, help with the health of your mitochondria. You'll have more energy. It also soaks up free radicals at the vascular level, reduces plaque formation. Because when you reduce the free radicals in your bloodstream, then there's less oxidized LDL. Less oxidized LDL means less plaque formation. And also, C60 helps with your brain function by boosting up the health of the mitochondria in your neurons, reducing the stress in the neuron, helping the strength of the structure of the myelin sheath. And over time, you're maintaining and building that neuroplasticity for thinking faster and for memory. But keeping the health of the mitochondria in the cell, the neuron cell, is super important. Super important. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Take a teaspoon a day every day to help with your immune system, your endocrine system, your brain function, cardiovascular, and other organ systems. Super important. And there's an added benefit to this. You do it before and after for a year of taking this every day, teaspoon a day, you're going to notice a visual difference in your aging. You're going to slow down. You're going to see that you look younger. Now, part of the reason is that your endocrine system and your immune system is better, and your vascular system is better. Your body has more energy, and its metabolism is improved. Brain function's improved. But not just that, it's improving the basal layer of your skin. And the basal layer of the skin is where the new skin cells develop. Well, if the basal layer is healthy and you're soaking up those free radicals and reducing the stress, then your new skin cells will be more robust, healthier. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the C60, take a teaspoon a day every day. I've been doing this since 2016.
First of all, it's a pleasure to be with you, and thanks a lot for your question. In fact, you know that from Monday onwards, federal court will be also assessing a very similar case, because in fact, what we try to do is to defend the consumers, industrials against monopolies, against behaviors that accumulate power in a given market. And this behavior was accumulating such a big power in the buy and sell sides, in the matching of the offers, so to provide the publicity in internet, that in fact it was becoming a kind of monopoly that of course we needed to face. And our decision is being taken on the basis of the
I want to go to Kevin O'Leary talking about Mandani.
Kevin O'Leary with me this morning. Kevin, New York City is in trouble. You're going to agree with me, I'm sure.
It's in a controversial space. There are still 3 candidates. My plans, Stuart, very simple. I plan to have dinner with each one of these to talk policy. I'm not into the rhetoric, starting tomorrow night. Mayor Adams, I hope he makes it. I'll report back. I'm simply asking the questions that every investor is going to ask, regardless of politics. How are you going to pull this off? What's the policy going to be? How am I going to invest in affordable housing if you put rent controls on it before you can develop it? Very simple, basic questions. I'd like to hear their answers.
But I want to know how you're going to pay for this.
Well, of course, that's the ultimate.
Childcare? That's incredibly expensive.
I think they should talk to investors like me. If not me, somebody else. We all talk to each other. I'm an investor. I develop real estate. I don't understand these policies until I sit down with them. I understand the rhetoric. Free everything for everybody is a good political platform to get elected on. But how are you going to attract capital here afterwards? That's my question. I hope he takes my dinner. I think the other 2 will. And I'll report back. I'm totally transparent on this.
Have you got a report with Mandani?
Not yet. I've asked his people, but I'm just putting more pressure on him, saying, why don't you talk to investors like me? Why don't you talk to me? I don't care about the rhetoric. I think you have a good chance of being mayor. I want to know what the policy is going to be. Is that it?
Because they're running on platforms where they're giving people freebies and they can't afford it. And people are going to be hoodwinked. And once they're in office, most likely the society will continue to develop. More crime, higher expenses, and more white flight out of the city. There's going to be white flight, and there's also going to be the upper middle class and rich leaving the city. I think very high probability that at least 80% chance within a year there's going to be further reduction in the population of New York because of the exodus.
Reasonable question.
I think Mandani might engage with you.
I think he might.
You are a capitalist.
Start with Adams tomorrow. That's it.
Well, I want to make sure you're going to go to Mandani.
I'm going to try.
It's great to see.
I don't think Mandani's going to do it. Listen, New York is like nothing else. It's like its own country. You got to know what the policy is going to be. And I'm just one investor. There are millions of others, including all around the world, who'd like to get a report card on this. I'm going in asking questions.
Got it. Stay with me for the hour, please. And at some point, we'll get to the watches that you're wearing today.
Oh, I have some big news on collectible cards, Stuart. You heard about that?
I do. That's right. I'm excited. Hold off till.
All right, let's listen to Faulkner. But before I do that, please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the Gladiator Barley. This will help to build muscle, do resistance training. Take the Gladiator Barley. This will also detoxify your body, bring down inflammation, and soak up free radicals with superoxide dismutase. So it's dual purpose. And when you're bringing down inflammation, you're helping your immune system, your cardiovascular system, your brain function. You're helping with joint health. You're recovering quicker after your workout. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and take the Gladiator Barley and do resistance training. And don't be a socialist or a Marxist or a communist.
Zero helps me take my business anywhere I want.
Essence of driving is gripping the road, keeping momentum.
Might be the same age. No, but I get what he's doing.
And they were just enthusiastic, Harris.
Great state of Arizona, member of the Judiciary and Oversight Committees and candidate for Arizona governor. You were also at that memorial service for Charlie Kirk yesterday. I don't know if you could hear some of the young people speaking there, but I think that the fact that the movement will go on, did you feel that there too?
Oh yes, I did, Harris. I mean, it was so powerful. I had occasion to walk out into the crowd and talk to some people. They were fired up. This is not going away. This movement's going to be stronger than ever. Yeah, a lot of young people there, a lot of old people like myself and others, a lot of middle-aged. Oh, maybe I'm middle-aged. Okay, here, so I'm going to take middle-aged.
Yeah, I don't think that's not old. We might be the same age. No, but I get what you're saying.
People were there and they were just enthusiastic, Harris, and the movement's going to be stronger than ever. I really believe that's true.
You know, the importance of, and I know we kind of kid about it, but the importance of all generations being around those young people who want to carry this movement forward is that we have the wisdom to be able to help them do that. And we know what that looks like. You're running for governor of that state. It will take all of us now.
Yeah, exactly right. We had people from all over the country that I knew that came in, and just for this event because they love Charlie. But let's just put it this way: it's all hands on deck. If you really want to save the country, it is all hands on deck right now. We see more division than ever. We see more crisis than ever. But Charlie found a way to overcome that, and he was helping to bridge the gap. And that's the message, and that's the mission.
Yeah, from both sides of the political aisle, he did that. Wow, what an example. Democrat Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett could use some schooling on that example. Instead, she's scolding her colleagues for not voting against a resolution to honor Charlie Kirk's legacy. That passed last week, and here's exactly what she said as that was happening.
I do want to point out that's not been laid out that honestly hurts my heart. Is when I saw the no votes, there were only 2 Caucasians. For the most part, the only people that voted no were people of color, because the rhetoric that Charlie Kirk continuously put out there was rhetoric that specifically targeted people of color. And so it is unfortunate that even our colleagues could not see how harmful his rhetoric was.
Look at the number of people who voted against this. 58 Democrats, and no, they're not all people of color. They voted against that resolution. That's on top of another 60 who did not bother to even show up and vote or voted present, which is like, you know, having no courage to go either way. Here's Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who led the charge against honoring Charlie Kirk.
Today's resolution only underscores the majority's recklessness by choosing to author this condemnation and honoring on a purely partisan basis. Instead of uniting Congress in this tragedy, his rhetoric and beliefs were ignorant, uneducated, and sought to disenfranchise millions of Americans.
So you see that, totally on politics. Forget about the person assassinated, people killed. What did Republicans do when faced with something similar? Well, here's how they reacted to a resolution against political violence in Minnesota. Every single House Republican voted to condemn the attacks that killed State Representative Melissa Portman and her husband, Mark, and critically injured State Senator John Hoffman and his wife, Yvette, every single one. You want to talk about division? I mean, Congressman, that is disgusting. That's embarrassing, and it's disgusting for Democrats that they would see it only one way.
Yeah, no, I mean, when I managed that resolution on the floor, and we had the speaker come down, and we were like, this should be a unanimous vote. We think this should be a unanimous vote. We're going to condemn political violence. And by the way, their mischaracterization, their attack on Charlie Kirk, actually, it shows their ignorance, and it shows their lack of goodwill, and it shows their lack of willing to bridge a gap, their lack of willingness to try to resolve issues and problems and difficulties we have in the nation. That's what it shows to me, Harris. And it was really disgusting to me that so many people voted no in the first place. But then you had the yellow votes. I call those the yellow votes because they show up yellow on the board as present only. Oh. And that means that they're too afraid to cast a vote one way or the other. Shameful. It was only a minority of Democrats that voted to condemn this killer and to recognize Charlie Kirk for who he was. And what a shameful thing.
You know, you hear Jasmine Cox, it's not the first time she's done it. Hakeem Jeffries has done it. Others do, even in leadership among Democrats. They turn this into purely a race issue. She said, oh, it was because of things that Charlie Kirk said. Yet when people listen and watch what he said, it doesn't back up fully what she's talking about. So do you feel that in the House? Because it sounds racist.
Well, I think it is racist, and I think it's unfortunate. But I mean, if you listen to Charlie, Charlie was he believed that race was just a social construct. We need to move beyond that and treat all people equally and you know, as created by God. But this notion that everything's going to be race based and every decision you make is just, that's what's ignorant. That's what's sad. And we deal with it and we move on. But what Charlie did this, he loved them anyway. That's hard for me to do. As Trump said yesterday, that's real hard to do.
Congressman, thank you very much, Congressman Andy Biggs of the great state of Arizona. Good to have you.
I'm Steve Juicy. I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and
Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the Boomer Boost. Boomer Boost has 68 nutrients. It has a very comprehensive compound profile shown on the screen. Read the label on my website. This will help multiple systems. It will help with your brain function, your cardiovascular system, musculature, your energy levels, revs up your metabolism, and you will see the benefits of this within 72 hours. You're going to have more vitality, more energy, and a slow burn of energy throughout the whole day with no crashing. It's a very important supplement to take to target multiple systems, but not just that, you will slow down the aging process by taking this. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the Boomer Boost. It also helps to control your A1C levels, especially when you stack it with the Gladiator barley or the heirloom barley. So please go to my store, get the Boomer Boost. It's the fourth pillar of my anti-aging protocol to rev up your metabolism and to boost up those energy levels. Super important. So use discount 5, you get $5 off any order. If you spend $100 or more, you get a free gift until supplies last. It's really important for you to stock up on the many different supplements that I have, especially for the fall and the winter. You're going to need them to boost up that immune system. Take my advice or don't take my advice. It's up to you. But if you do what I tell you to do, you will be way better off in the fall and the winter. And if you take these on a regular basis, you're going to slow down the aging process. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get healthy. It is in your power. Thank you for listening and have a nice day.